Good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for this Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. It is 9:02 a.m. My name is Ty Mentor, Chair of the Board. Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards is on the Zoom platform. Commissioner Carolina Mejia is in the boardroom. We have our County Manager, Amiro Chavez, and Assistant County Manager, Robin Campbell, and a whole host of other folks, mostly staff relating to particular agenda items. We're here from 9 to 12. There'll be a break about halfway through. The public may attend through our live stream on the Thurston County YouTube channel. We'll start out this morning with item 1, COVID-19 update. Director of Public Health and Social Services, Shelley Slaughter. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Today is day 601 of Thurston County's emergency COVID-19 pandemic response. In Washington State, there have been 649,284 confirmed cases of COVID-19 since the pandemic began, and 7,528 deaths in Washington State. This includes 17,770 Thurston County residents who've had confirmed COVID-19 and 193 Thurston County residents that have lost their lives due to COVID, including 20 in just the last week. Our current case rate is 471.1 on the governor's risk assessment dashboard, with 743 new COVID cases confirmed in the last week. There have been 1,151 Thurston County residents hospitalized to date, with 19 new hospitalizations occurring in the last week. Currently, our Thurston County hospitals report 51 COVID positive patients admitted. 23 of those patients are on ventilators. Our ICU capacity here in Thurston County is at 100% this morning, and our acute hospital beds are at 96%. We continue to have a shortage of staffed beds and critical staffing levels at our hospitals. Test positivity rate is not currently available due to a backlog of cases being reported to BoCC, which is where we get our data from. We have tested 424 Thurston County residents at our community-based testing sites and have added an additional hour of testing due to high demand at each of our community-based testing locations. Today, we are at Rochester Organization of Families. Tomorrow, we will be in Lacey, Thursday at Union Gospel Mission, and Friday at Evergreen State College. Encourage people to get tested if they are exposed to someone with COVID-19 or experiencing symptoms of COVID. We have not yet seen the full impact of the Labor Day holiday or schools resuming in-person learning. We do have a number of school-associated cases and classroom outbreaks throughout Thurston County and continue to follow that. Our vaccine rates continue to improve. 335,837 COVID-19 doses have been administered by Thurston County vaccine providers. 60.1% of our total population has had at least one dose, and 55% of our Thurston County population is considered fully vaccinated at this point. 71.2% of those 16 and older have initiated at least one dose of a series, and 65.2% of those 16 and older are fully vaccinated. In the 12 and up population, 70% have initiated at least one dose, and 64% of 12 and over are fully vaccinated. We look forward and are planning for approval of pediatric vaccines in the near future. We are happy to announce, as I'm sure many have heard in the media, that there is a booster dose approved for those that received the Pfizer vaccine more than 6 months ago. At this time, those 65 and older, those 18 and older in a long-term care setting, And those 50 to 64, ages 50 to 64 who have underlying conditions should get a COVID-19 booster if they have had the Pfizer vaccine. Others that are eligible that have had the Pfizer more than 6 months ago include those that are ages 18 to 49 with underlying conditions, those that are between the ages of 18 and 64 years old that have high-risk occupations, and that's defined as such sectors to include first responders, educators, grocery workers, those that work in corrections facilities, transit workers, agricultural, and manufacturing. We encourage you to please check our Thurston County Public Health and Social Services website and the Washington State Department of Health website for more information on where you can get a COVID-19 vaccine. Strongly encourage people to get vaccinated if they have not already and get a booster dose when you are eligible. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Mejia,
None at this time, thank you.
Commissioner Edwards.
We never hear about the age groups, like we lost 20 people, you mentioned. What's the age group on those folks?
We do have that age group, and we report that on our website and in our weekly report. I do not have that breakdown of those 20 that are reported this morning right in front of me now, but I can get that for you later, and the public can get that from our website.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. I don't have anything this morning.
Thank you very much.
Let's go to Keely Marino and Homeless Strategies Update, item 2.
Good morning, Commissioners. Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services. I am going to just start us off with our rental assistance update, as we do every week. This week's numbers, Community Action Council has served 2,449 Thurston County households. They have distributed $17 million in rent assistance and about $92,000 in utility assistance at this time. And they're holding steady at serving nearly 60% of the households that they are giving, providing the support to are under 30% area median income. CYS is at 648,000, serving young people who live in Thurston County between the ages of 18 and 24. 84 households of young people have been served, 152 still in process. So still moving along pretty swiftly with the rent assistance distribution. As I've mentioned before, Community Action Council has attached several thank you letters. If any of you would be interested in seeing them, I'm happy to pass them along. Great. Other news, we are moving forward with conversations around how we can help support Providence St. Peter Hospital and other surrounding medical facilities with the vehicles that are parked along Ensign Road between Providence Lane and Lily Road. We have started a communications plan around what we hope to be able to offer in support of our hospital and medical facilities. We are developing an MOU with the City of Olympia. We're meeting on a weekly basis with City of Olympia staff and City of Lacey staff, City of Tumwater for the Regional Housing Council technical team to continue discussing options. And we'll be working on and offering a town hall to discuss plans as they develop, and that will be in mid-October. We're also working with the provider that we have contracted with for our scattered site pilot program, Olympia Mutual Aid Partners, to help us with this endeavor in terms of operations. And that's my report for today.
Questions for Keely? Commissioner Mejia.
No, just I have comments, if
Okay.
that's okay.
Absolutely, go ahead.
I attended the meeting with Providence and other businesses this past Friday, and kind of got a sense of where they're at. And their frustration is palpable. They are really wanting some action. I have asked them to keep inviting us to the table and keep us in loop with those future conversations. And Thank you, Keely, for making yourself available to attend those. And then another comment is in regards to the article that came out last week where City of Lacey completely just, I felt, threw us under the table when the Thurston County Commissioners just discussed this past week. It was very frustrating just seeing, you know, when we've tried to keep them in communication with everything that's going on and try to keep them in the loop. And then seeing that article last week, it felt very underhanded, you know, and just hearing their comments at the Lacey City Council, especially when I know Ramiro has had several conversations with their city manager and several city council members. I spent the time with several city council members on the phone as well, explaining what was going on. And then to kind of see that was very frustrating, and trying to explain that to Providence and the rest of the business owners as well.
Commissioner Mejia, just to add to what you just said, I had presented the proposal. The board had heard it on a Tuesday. That Friday, 3 days later, was a 3 cities meeting. Usually the mayor of Lacey is there. He wasn't there, but his deputy mayor was there and the city manager was there. And I brought the topic up, and Deputy Mayor Pratt had some comments about it, but, but to see then a couple days later in the newspaper that we're not addressing this with Lacey, I was equally disappointed. The first thing I wanted to ask you, your first comment was about that meeting. Can you, when you say Providence and business owners, do you mean business owners near the hospital or business owners near the Carpenter Road site? I wasn't clear who was at this meeting you were talking about, Commissioner.
So the meeting was with Providence. It was basically they have a little HOA kind of deal going on with the rest of the business owners around the area. So it's basically all the businesses kind of affected by Ensign Road go to this meeting. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Edwards just walked out of the boardroom.
Yes. Can you give it a second just in case he has any comments on this, please?
Okay, and let me just jump and I see if I have anything.
Comments and questions.
Yes, I do have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
If that site was to be utilized right now, is there any zoning changes or anything that need to take place?
Under the emergency housing ordinance, the board has the director of CPEC has the authority to deviate from the code and authorize that. And we're working on that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Keely. Don't have anything else? Okay, item 3 is a review of the proposed agenda for this afternoon, October 5th board meeting. The meeting would be called to order at 2 p.m. We'd have Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Mejia, consideration of the agenda and meeting minutes from September 28th. And then a presentation is scheduled 2:05 for proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, I was wondering if maybe it was on the wrong sheet here. That's okay.
This agenda.
Got
Let's
it.
take a second, get commissioners lined up.
It's on the list here.
I have two of the same.
Oh, mine's on the back of that.
Did you have a copy of the 28th?
I have two of the fifth.
There was a revised, I had one that was marked revised,
Okay.
and my original was not discarded, so I've got 2 as well, but I think I know which one it is.
Okay.
Maybe I'll ask clerk of the board because I don't want to be reading off the wrong agenda myself. What was what item was revised so I can make sure I got the right one?
The one in Ty's packet is the correct one.
Yeah,
I
the-
tossed his other.
Yeah, the one you have on your packet is the correct one, and we tossed from your packet the old one, so.
Well, actually, you didn't. I have the revised and I have two in my packet, so.
Maybe,
Okay.
maybe what I could do, I have the correct one, maybe I can guide you through if you miss one.
I think I've got it. It's just, it was labeled. I just took the label off because usually the old one is discarded. So I took the label off and now I've got the two unlabeled that it wasn't actually discarded. So I've got two. So if I hit anything that's out of order from you guys, just let me know.
I will.
Okay, proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Anything to be said here, Ramiro?
You're looking at the 28th or the 5th?
That's a fifth.
Yeah, that's,
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have the 28th. I've got two copies of the 5th.
Okay.
I guess, okay, so the wrong one was discarded. When the 5th was subbed in, somebody must have discarded the 28th.
Okay, well, we'll give you a copy
Amy's
of the
bringing
28th.
it, one sec. Same thing happened to me, I had to, because I was like, wait.
That's fresh.
So just for the members of the public, even on the well-oiled machine, sometimes things happen.
Okay, so I'll take that.
Yeah, I think somebody just discarded the wrong one because I got two 5ths and no 28th. Okay,
Okay, now we're good.
I didn't even notice the date. Yeah, okay. So we're looking at the draft agenda for this afternoon, which is September 28th. And okay, start over. 2 p.m. call meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Edwards. Consideration of the agenda and board meeting minutes from September 21st. So then under presentations, we have 3 items. The first is pretrial services, introduction to pretrial services employee.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. Mary Ann Clear, the Director of Pretrial Services, will be introducing to the board Lisa Jackson as the new Pretrial Services Officer this afternoon. Next is the Auditor's Proclamation of National Voters Registration Day, and County Auditor Mary Hall will be present. She's pre-booked today with meetings. She will make an attempt to be in person, but if not, she will be joining us via Zoom. And that will give you the opportunity to have a conversation with the auditor by declaring September 28, 2021, a National Voter Registration Day in Thurston County. And the next proclamation is for you to consider proclaiming, I believe it's September 2015 through October 15, Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month in Thurston County.
Can I say something about that? I unfortunately sent the wrong date to people that were going to attend this event. That was a mistake on my part, so can we set it to
Next Tuesday?
next Tuesday? If that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that works well for me. And we've got a couple of public hearings today and a couple of other
Okay,
presentations, so that'll work.
For October 5th.
I apologize about that.
Thank you.
till October 5th.
Okay, are we good on those?
Yes, sir.
Okay, opportunity for the public to address the board would then follow, and county manager's update. Anything county manager?
You will be receiving public testimony this afternoon from Mr. Culberson on the Lawrence Lake Management District. He will give you, I believe he sent you some information via email onto the gist of his comments he will be providing, mainly related to the indirect costs associated with the Lake Management District funding. So you will be receiving public testimony this afternoon on that. I don't have anything else related, anything that I know on public testimony. And I really don't have any follow-up items related to the county manager's update. Tomorrow I have a meeting with staff related to Mr. Carmen's comments 2 weeks ago related to the recycled asphalt that it was placed on the Thurston County Fairgrounds. So we continue to work through that, and at some point we'll bring you an update overall on his comments. And also, I will not be reporting this afternoon, but you also had a conversation and an executive session related to the comments you received from the LeMay company associated with the solid waste contracts that we're working on. And a response from staff is going to be sent to LeMay soon related to their comments. That's all I have on that.
Okay, there's that, and then the consent item is the voucher list. I'm going to ask commissioners if they have any questions on county manager's update or the consent item.
No, sir.
Yes, I have one question. When are we having the executive session
For LeMay,
for LeMay?
you had it last week.
Yeah. Oh, I know, but are we having
No.
we're having another executive session?
No.
What's that one for?
Today?
Yeah.
Today on your agenda.
Oh, okay, Blake did again. I got it. Okay.
Thank you.
Bouncing around
Okay.
a little bit.
Okay, great. Let's go to item 4A, commissioner's item, lease for 3000 Pacific Avenue.
Yeah, you discussed this item last week, commissioners, and you decided to bring forward this for your consideration to approve a 7-year lease of the 3000 Pacific, where county offices will be, some county offices and departments will be moving in order to allot space here at the courthouse and implement some expansions and remodels here at the courthouse. Last week, we provided some information, some lost revenue that we received the week prior to that conversation, and you saw some the impact on that in the report that we provided to you related to the forecast of the general fund. And today we have updated the forecast, and Robin is going to touch base on that later on your agenda on item number 2, county revenue. And she will walk you through the details of the new forecast. So I will suggest that perhaps this item is pending based on the conversation that you will have later on today on the county revenues.
Okay, well then let's just delay that item's consideration until the commissioner item section then. So we'll come back to 4A. Let's look at 5A, central services, bid award for family and juvenile court hydronic repairs.
Yeah, you review this item, commissioners, and you authorized going to the bid process. So on September 13, 2021, we received one bid from Apex Mechanical of Battle Ground, Washington. We'll change the title. It's actually Apex Mechanical and no Apex Roofing before this afternoon. They provided the bid amount for $356,206.40, which includes a sales tax and up to 10% contingency, and is to cover any unexpected during the construction. We have been seeing recent leaks within the heating water system at the juvenile court, and this is an attempt to go ahead and fix that on a permanent basis because the normal M&O is not working. Any questions?
Commissioner Mejia,
No questions in regards to that.
Commissioner Edwards.
No, sir.
Okay, me neither. Let's go to 5B. RFQ and quotes for janitorial services.
Yes, you also review this item. The current contract that we have for janitorial services ends on December 31st, 2021. This particular proposal, the department is asking to access the Department of Enterprise Services with the state, the master contract, to get bids related to the janitorial services for future years. There are currently 3 different vendors, and we're hoping to get the 6 out of those so we can start negotiations with that contract. During this conversation last week, I believe Commissioner Mensah had a question related whether any of those contracts has a union labor. So I will ask Jason, I think he was going to look into that. If you can provide a perspective, that would be great.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jason Ash, Facility Services Manager. I did look into it, and the only union custodial staff there is the staff that works for DES. There are no vendors that I've found that are union contractors. But I will add that this contract would be awarded paying prevailing wage for custodial staff.
I would
Yes.
also just add that the DES staff, those are state employees and not available to us.
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Commissioner Mejia,
No questions.
Commissioner Edwards.
Just clarification then, so there's 33 possible vendors, is that what I heard?
There was 33 possible vendors. The state vetted that down to 6. So we're asking to go out to all 6 that the state vetted.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out. Good enough.
All right, we're inviting the 6 to bid.
I just want to clarify that when you invite 6 to bid, if somebody else is on that list, what happened to their opportunity?
So the 33 that bid on the DES master contract, only 6 of those are considered qualified.
Okay. Thank you. They had an opportunity at some point.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, nothing further there, then we'll go to,
And we'll bring back this, after we go through the process of seeing the proposals and bring a proposed contract for you to consider that later in the year. That will be the next steps.
6A is Community Planning and Economic Development Contract Authorization for Alliance for Healthy South Sound Coordination.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. Thurston County, you reviewed this item last week as well, and Thurston County serves as the fiscal agent for the Alliance for Healthy South Sound, which is recognized by the Puget Sound Partnership Leadership Council as the local integrating organization for South Sound, and given the responsibility to coordinate the development of local South Sound recovery actions in Puget Sound. This particular proposal is for you to consider awarding the contract to Ross Strategic for the amount of $125,000. And that is somewhat of the consultant who provides services associated with the Alliance for Healthy South Sound. This is a pass-through money, so there is not a county funds associated with this particular contract. Last week, Commissioner Edwards asked the question if you can provide some specifics as to the deliverables of the Ross Strategic. And I believe Jennifer is here to answer that question. Thank you.
I am. Good morning, Jennifer Davis, Community Planning Manager. In answer to Commissioner Edwards' questions, I did some poking around, and our relationship as Thurston County is a partner in Alliance for Healthy South Sound. So we're a fiscal agent for the pass-through federal money, and we manage the contract with Ross Strategic, both of which are being renewed this afternoon. But our role really as a participant is to make sure that the priority actions of the Puget Sound Action Agenda for water quality and salmon recovery are implemented. And Ross Strategic basically is the glue that holds that work together. And the work that AHSS, Alliance for Healthy South Sound, has done under the coordination of Ross Strategic, the consultant, they have endorsed and funded projects including identifying and collecting pollution sources. They fund the Shore Friendly program that works with volunteer landowners to help soften shoreline armoring. They've done habitat enhancement in the Upper Deschutes, freshwater assessment and restoration plan for the Kennedy Goldsboro Creek. There are multiple other small salmon habitat protection and restoration projects accomplished through Alliance for Healthy South Sound. So those are just some of the examples. There's more information, obviously, on their webpage. Everything's very transparent. Happy to answer any other questions.
And the funding source?
This is a federal funding, it's a pass-through.
Pass-through.
Yep.
National Estuary Program is the federal funding program. It's passed through Puget Sound Partnership through the county.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
okay, no other questions from the board?
No, sir.
All right, let's look at item 7A, Public Health and Social Services, Pierce County South Sound Shellfish Recovery Agreement. Amendment 5.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. We currently have, back in 2018, we signed an agreement with First County. Well, they provide funding for us to continue working with the community members to address water pollution problems associated particularly with Dobbs Creek. This particular amendment does not increase the funding. It does increase the time of performance of the contract, which is September 30, 2022. And again, the overall contract at this point is $333,465. And the only amendment on this proposal is to extend the contract itself. Art, sorry, is here if you have any additional questions on this proposal.
Questions for Art, Commissioner Mejia,
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
Funding source?
This is coming from Pierce County, and I believe that is the
Coming in.
Coming
Money
in.
coming in.
Pierce County gets federal money and then pass through to Thurston County to provide us.
Okay, thank you.
That's the, as Art stated last, that's the Denny Heck money.
Yeah. We have to put everything in its category. Then he gets credit for that.
Okay, thank you, Art. Let's go to 7B, Interagency Agreement for Pollution Prevention Assistance.
Thank you, Commissioners. You also reviewed this item last week. This proposal to get into an agreement with the State Department of Ecology for a total amount of $205,000. And the term of this proposal is from July 1st, 2021 to June 30, 2023. The Department of Ecology provides resources to public health and social services to provide technical assistance and education outreach to local businesses to prevent pollution on waters of the state as part of the Pollution Prevention Assistance Program. Environmental Health Division staff conducts source control, site visits, and pollution prevention activities to business and generates hazard materials. So this a grant that is 100% covered. It is not a match, I believe, and it will this will help us to continue providing the services related to source control and site visits. And Art is here to answer additional questions.
Anything for Art, Commissioner Mejia,
No questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
I'm not sure that it's for Art, but the county manager said waters of the state. You had that statement in there. So those dollars can be used for, I don't know, I'm thinking about Black Lake right off the top of my head, you know, about those tributaries that are coming in that are contaminating the lake. Is that a expenditure that we could be thinking about because it's waters of the state?
So I believe, and Art can elaborate on this, I believe is specifically related to pollution activities to businesses that generate hazardous waste or have a potential to release hazardous chemicals into the environment. So it's targeted to that. I don't think that this is a qualified activity on Black Lake, but Art can correct me if I'm off on that one.
And I guess I'll add to that, I mean, just the lakes in general, that's kind of where I'm coming from. The Black Lake comes to mind.
Good morning. Ramiro is correct in that this grant is focusing on small businesses that use and generate hazardous materials. And so while there may be some in the Black Lake watershed, it's in fact something that goes throughout it's for the whole county. And the focus of this, or the reason that Department of Ecology is funding it, is because of the state's interest in making sure that hazardous materials aren't released into any sort of stormwater system or conveyance that can pollute Puget Sound. So that's why or other things. So that's really the focus of it. And so as Ramiro indicated, this isn't really this isn't a funding source we can use to follow up on the concerns of the citizens on Black Lake, unfortunately. We are looking at grants to try to do that, however, and hope that maybe we can be coming back to you in the near future with a grant that would allow us to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Art. Let's look at the next item, which is 7C, Solid Waste Financial Assistance Agreement.
Yeah, this is also an agreement with the Department of Ecology, and this related to the solid waste financial assistance program for eligible cost of $315,120 in the terms from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2023. The Department of Ecology is offering the Environmental Health Division the local waste financial assistance grant to support the solid waste program, permitting, inspection, and solid waste enforcement activities. Solid waste management is the core public health program and requires required by the state law in Article 5 of the Thurston County Sanitary Code. This particular grant will help us to deliver those services, and this grant has a match. The grant itself is $236,340, and the match is $78,780. The source of the local match will be coming from the tipping fees of the solid waste program. And Art is here to elaborate on any questions the board may have.
Questions from the board?
I think I'm missing that page.
Page 4 of the proposed agenda for this
Yes,
morning.
yeah, I'm missing page 4.
Okay.
And you know, okay, go ahead. Get through it. 4 or 5, got it. Okay. Yeah, we went over this last week.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. So any questions, commissioners, on item 7C?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
No.
Okay. Let's look at 7D, request for proposals for hotel vouchers and rapid rehousing programs.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. We also reviewed this item last week. And this is associated with House Bill 1277, where the legislature approved additional recording fees. There's a lot of work behind this particular funding source, and the state has taken the first step. And the first step is to make available through an application to Thurston County $1,633,401 to help us pay for lease of hotel and motel rooms, repairs, and damages. The proposal before you is to go with a request for proposals to secure the vendor who can provide that assistance in terms of hotel vouchers, motel rooms, and rental assistance. And again, this is not an allocation we need to apply for this money, but it's a set aside for Thurston County, again, for $1,633,401.
1,000,006, you say?
$1,633,401. And the performance of this particular contract will be has to be by January 2022, and the expenses will be available July 1st, 2021 through June 30, 2023. A little bit of back in time of it. So Tom is here to answer any questions.
Commissioner Mejia?
Just a clarification, this is the 1277 money, correct?
Yep, a portion of that.
A portion of it.
The overall distribution is yet to come.
Okay.
And will that come out of Commerce?
Yeah, I think Commerce is the one who is distributing those funds.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's it, sir.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
We'll then have our standing items under 8A, B, and C, and we will move to public hearings. There are 2 scheduled. The first one is Community Planning and Economic Development regarding the Tumwater Joint Plan.
Yes, Commissioner, you will be hearing public testimony for the joint plan with the City of Tumwater. And at this point, we only have one option for you to consider, is to close the public hearing. We have already scheduled a follow-up meeting, depending on to go over the public testimony you might receive this afternoon. And depending on how the board would like to move based on the public testimony, we'll bring a formal action for you to consider approving the joint plan. So that is the public hearing this afternoon. And the next public hearing is related to the 6-year transportation improvement program for 2022-2027. Also, we're proposing for you to take only one action, is to close the public hearing. And this particular action for you to approve the TIP, the 6-year transportation improvement program, will be lining up on the approvals of the 2022-2023 budget. So, and again, this is required for you to have a public hearing on this program, but the action you may take in approving this will be coordinated with the overall budget approval process in December.
Any questions from commissioners?
No, sir.
Just a clarification, this doesn't have anything to do with the traffic impact fees?
No, sir.
Okay,
That has been already approved and
Yes.
handed over here.
thank you.
County Manager, I see Leah Davis is online. Can I ask her a question?
Absolutely.
Leah? Just wanted to know if you've received public, like written, if you could care, have we gotten input so far, written or otherwise, on the Tumwater Joint Plan?
Good morning, Leah Davis, Community Planning. We have received one comment, written comment, and many questions about mostly the airport hazard overlay, but no other written comments besides that.
And will that be like presented to the board at the time of the public hearing this afternoon, or when will we see that?
Yeah, I will be sending those comments to Amy Davis. The deadline for comment is 2 p.m. And so after that time, I will send all comments to Amy for your review.
Okay, thank you. Then that will bring us to the end of this afternoon's business items. So next on the agenda for the work session this morning is a review of October 5th, the proposed agenda for next Tuesday's board meeting. Call to order at 2 p.m. We'll have Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Mejia. Look at the agenda and meeting minutes from today. A presentation, proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yeah, so based on the decision the board made, you will have two items on the presentations. One will be the Hispanic Latino Heritage Month. That will be on the October 5th agenda. And also for your consideration is to proclaim the month of October 2021 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Thurston County. We'll make sure the Public Health and Social Services representatives are here, as well as the Prosecuting Attorney's Office, and as well as the Thurston County Sheriff's Office, because they are really involved in this particular matter. And I believe you have a copy attached in your packet of the resolution, so if you have any comments, please let us know.
Comments or questions on the proclamations from the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Then we'll have opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update. Don't imagine there's anything to say at this juncture, Ramiro?
No, sir. I will follow up with it if there's anything related to any comments you might receive today.
Okay, two consent items, 3A, Human Resources, Resolution for Classification.
Yeah, Commissioners, for your consideration, this is something that I have been working for a long while. For your considerations is to establish a new classification. This classification is the assistant director to departments. For those departments, they have 75 FTEs or more. And this does not create a new position. I just want to make sure it just creates the classification. And this really provides a tool for the larger departments to start looking organizationally how they can help internal the operations, so the director has the opportunity to be more strategic and start more having a public facing with the public. We have seen there is a need, at least from my perspective, over the last 2-3 years, and this is, I believe, a long time coming. And for your consideration is for you to establish this classification. I want to make sure that you're not approving a new position, you're just approving a classification. And the departments affected by this will go through the process of realigning their organization and perhaps reclassifying some of the existing positions to align with this new proposal.
Question, Commissioner Mejia?
Yes, which departments qualify for this?
At this point, the departments that will qualify is Public Health and Social Services, as well as Public Works. And this will be, as the county grows and the organization grows, that will give also options to departments to access this particular classification if need be.
Commissioner Edwards?
Even though there won't be new FTEs created, there must be going to put some financial incentive in there. Some.
Well, the range of this classification is from $8,398 to $11,197 per month. That's the range.
Oh.
And the departments will provide this an opportunity to see how they can reorganize the existing positions to take advantage of this classification if the board decides to approve it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to item, 3B is the voucher list, which we'll get later this week. Item 4A is public health. Request for proposals for diversity, equity, inclusion consultant.
So the agenda for October 5th is all about public health. So we'll go through all the many different items that public health has on next week's agenda. So the first item, Commissioner, is a proposal for you to issue a request for proposals for the Office in Housing and Homeless Prevention to solicit applications for diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. In 2020, the region, 2020, 2021, I think 2021 is this process that we went through every this year, right, Kelly? Yeah. So it's in 2000.
Correct, that was my mistake.
In 2021, the Regional Housing Council, as you may recall, went through a request for proposals that were provided funding to the many different organizations. Within that discussion, they set aside $150,000 from the local document recording fees to fund a dedicated consultant to address racial disparities in the homeless crisis response system. The proposed consultant will develop a process of creating a community-based steering committee comprised of BIPOC stakeholders, and also provides support to the Regional Housing Council in terms of racial equity and provide adequate feedback for the Regional Housing Council to make informed decisions related to this particular item. And again, this is already set aside from the previous process. It was intended to go through this process, so finally we've had the opportunity to come and request the board to issue a request for proposals. Keely?
Yes, I'm so sorry. My computer froze at the last 2 minutes of what you said. So I apologize. I know that you had summarized.
Maybe the board can have any questions for you?
Commissioner Mejia?
I do not have any questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
I've always thought that we were we had that covered pretty well. So I'm curious how much money we're talking about and what we expect in return. And I thought we hired somebody here recently to do something similar. So
it's a little bit different. This is $150,000 that was set aside from the process the Regional Housing Council went through in the spring. It's a little bit different from the racial equity program manager that we hired. Our racial equity program manager in the county is dedicated to help stand at Racial Equity Council, as well as help us hiring practices and develop a plan as to how we need to improve here as a county as well in terms of racial equity. This particular consultant is going to be dedicating specifically to address the homeless crisis response system. So that is really is the key of this particular proposal. A little bit different, but Keely can elaborate on that if you may.
Yes, absolutely. So in 2019, when we approved the 5-year plan, the Homeless Crisis Response Plan, one of the mandates from Department of Commerce was that each local community, each county address racial disparity within the homeless crisis response system. So in 2019, when we are creating strategies to do that, they were not vetted. And so in conversations that we had with the Homeless Crisis Response Plan work group this year, and embedded in our funding process, we discussed having a dedicated consultant in order to ensure that the strategies that we are drafting are meaningful and will actually meet that mandate from Department of Commerce in addressing racial disparity in the homeless crisis response system. So it's very specific to the tasks identified in the 5-year plan, which is a mandate from our funder.
And my follow-up question is, where do the dollars come from?
That is coming from the local document recording fees, and again, it has already been set aside this year.
And those local fees, they're dedicated fees, aren't they, for certain things?
Yeah, and that's the local document recording fees is accumulation of all the jurisdictions they put in the pot.
And will this cover all the jurisdictions kind of as a joint?
Yeah,
Activity.
it really provides support to the Regional Housing Council.
Okay, thank you.
Ramiro, when you say that it was set aside in the spring, this is through the process of this is one of the scored items that we then had points and the board approved that.
Yeah,
I
yes, sir.
think.
Yes, sir. You're recalling very well. That was the process.
So this is really just following up on a decision we already made in a sense.
Yes.
Okay, I don't specifically recall it, but I know at the time I would have looked at it and considered it and asked any questions at that time. So, okay. All right, then thank you, Keely. Item 4B is rent assistance contract amendment with Washington State Department of Commerce.
Yeah, so items 4B and 4C are related. So items 4B is for you to consider approving an interlocal agreement between the county and the State Department of Commerce for us to receive an additional $12,009,391 to continue to provide rental assistance and utility assistance to those individuals affected in the county affected by the pandemic. So this has been a continued effort by the Washington State Department of Commerce back in March 2021. We were awarded an amount of $10,210,000 for emergency rental and utility assistance. They follow up on this award, and they continue to support this effort. So just to give you an idea, the cumulative support they would have received for rental assistance as well as utility assistance reaches a little bit closer to $38 million that we are providing assistance to Thurston County residents who are in need of rental assistance. And again, this action is for you to consider to get into an agreement with the State Department of Commerce to receive the additional funding related to this particular need in the county. Tom Webster is here to answer any questions.
Questions for Tom? Commissioner Mejia.
So how much total have we received, this year and for rental assistance and utility assistance, Tom?
That total is approximately $38 million. And so as you heard this morning from Keely's, Community Action Council has already spent around the first $17 million of that. And so a couple of weeks ago, you approved an additional allocation to CAC from our direct allocation that we received from Treasury, and this is coming through the Department of Commerce. So, and I'll let you know we're expecting a third allocation from the Department of Commerce in later October. So at this point, with the receipt of these funds, it will bring our total to approximately $38 million.
Okay. And then with these funds, is the threshold still at that 30% income requirement? or?
So the eligibility requirements are essentially the same. There are some slight minor differences between the two programs, but they're very similar. The threshold for the eligibility is the same. To be eligible is 80% of area median income, although we're targeting households and we're giving priority to households below 50% of area median income. And we're, as Keely indicated earlier, we're seeing the vast majority of support going to those who make 30% or below. However, the eligibility cutoff is 80% of area median income to be eligible for these resources.
Any further questions?
Tom, when we receive this money, it's through Washington State Commerce Department, right?
That is correct, yes.
And that money is pass-through money from CARES or not?
It's pass-through money through the Department of Treasury, and I believe this is actually pass-through. I believe this is American Rescue Plan funding.
Okay, I see the funny person nodding, okay. Will this be in the total when we finally get the breakdown of how much money has come to Thurston County and where it was spent? That'll be all part of this, right? They're gonna be separate line items here at some point.
Yes, we're working on putting together the complete picture of all the funding that the county has received in response to COVID.
Okay, and so far we've spent out of this, what did you say, 17 million?
Yeah, close to 17 to, when you add in community youth services, it's about $18 million.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Ramiro, is that an adequate, that's 4B, and you said 4C is related?
Yeah, 4C is the next step in the process, is for you to consider amending the contract that we have with the Community Action Council and also the Community Youth Services to add to the Community Action Council an additional $9,959,391, and the Community Youth Services contract to add an additional $2 million. As part of the requirements, we need to, the Department of Commerce, it requires that at least 10% of the households be served by this funding for young adults that will be between the ages 18 and 24. And that's what we have two different contracts in here. The Community Action Council, as Tom stated, meet those requirements of low income. In this particular case, the Community Action Council helped us to meet the requirement that at least 10% of the household be served for young adults, 18 to 24 years old. So this is for you to consider authorizing those two amendments to the contracts with the CAC as well as the Community Action, Community Youth Services.
Commissioner Mejia?
More questions?
Commissioner Edwards?
Just for clarification, so the 18 million that we've already spent, the 12 that we're getting, and this 10, all roughly, those numbers are rough. That all adds up to about the 38 million. Is that what we're putting together here?
Yeah, so this, just to clarify, these funds here come out of that 12 million that you're approving in the previous AIS. There was an additional AIS contract that you approved a couple of weeks ago that provided an additional approximately almost $7 million of additional funding that we received directly from Treasury. But this funding, so this 10 million to CAC and the 2 million to Community Youth Services makes up the 12 million in the previous AIS that we're receiving from Department of Commerce.
But it's Treasury money.
Correct.
And will that be broken down by line item when we get it, or will that just be one lump sum from Treasury or Commerce?
There's an allocation for administration, but the bulk of it, 85% needs to go to rent and utilities. So there is a share for administration, but the majority of the rest goes to rent and utilities.
But it's two streams of money that we have received from the federal government. as Tom stated, is one, a direct allocation from the Department of Treasury and an allocation from State Department of Commerce, that is from the same American Rescue Plan action by the federal government. So, and yeah, at some point, as Robin stated, we're trying to line up everything because we are receiving a lot of money. Yeah, we'll give you a report overall.
But it's all dedicated money, it isn't like.
It's all dedicated. In this case, specifically to emergency rent and utility assistance activities. There's really no more flexibility in that.
Okay, I guess more to come on that, thank you.
Okay. Then let's look at item D, Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Contract.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. The Washington State Healthcare Authority, the Division of Behavioral Health and Recovery Community Prevention Wellness Activities would like for you to consider an amendment to the current agreement for $520,000. And the performance of this contract duration is from July 1st, 2021 to June 30, 23, sorry. The Community Prevention and Wellness Initiative, the CPWI, of the Washington State Healthcare Authority provides resources and support to youth, substance use prevention, and communities across the state of Washington. And the first half in 2018, Thurston County Public Health and Social Services became the contract and fiscal agent to provide those services to the community coalition of Bucoda, Tenino, as well as the Tumwater. The Bucoda Tenino Health Action Team is also known as the BDAT, THAT, and the Tumwater is the HOPES. It's all those acronyms. So this is a continuation to the program that we provide the services to support those activities, and it's just about $130,000 per year is going to be funded. Chris Hawkins is here to further elaborate on my presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chris Hawkins here, Thurston County Public Health and Social Services Program Manager in Education and Prevention. And this is a renewal of a 2-year contract. We have really had a great degree of success with these two coalitions here in Thurston County to work on prevention of youth substance use and really health promotion more broadly to really benefit these communities and our whole of Thurston County. We look forward to continuing to support BDAT and Tumwater Hopes. We have a slate of really excellent activities for this school year as we conduct a variety of different prevention services and strategies. That includes mentoring through Big Brothers Big Sisters. It includes Nurse Family Partnership, support for Nurse Family Partnership in the Bucoda Tenino area, among many other different programs as a comprehensive prevention approach with these communities. So we're looking forward to being able to continue this fine work, and happy to answer any questions that you have about the contract amendment.
Commissioner Mejia,
No questions at the moment.
Commissioner Edwards.
Chris, do you happen to know off the top of your head, I don't want you to have to look it up, but the Nurse Family Nurse Partner funding portion of this, what, that doesn't allow them very much. I'm curious what they get if we break this down just roughly.
Well, the BDAT coalition has agreed and invested each year the full dedicated marijuana account portion of direct services funding for BDAT to Nurse Family Partnership. So that amounts to a little over $20,000 per year, which allows NFP to serve a number of families in that Bucoda Tenino area with that important maternal child health support that they need.
But don't they get some other funding so they can do a little better job in that
Yes,
area?
and the next item on
Oh,
the
yeah.
agenda is related to the NFP,
Oh,
additional money.
okay,
Yeah,
good enough.
and that, I think you're reading ahead.
No, I didn't read that. I haven't had time to get there. We don't ever get it.
So the next item on the agenda is
Okay.
exactly related to the Nurse Family Partnership.
Okay, good enough. More to come.
Two items down, sorry. Okay.
So we're ready to go to 4E then? Sounds
Yes.
like. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Interlocal agreement with Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Gretchen Thaller's here.
I think is Annalise. I think this is related to the developmental disabilities. Are you tracking on that, Commissioner? That's 4E.
We just did 4D.
4E.
Right, 4E.
That's the vocational rehabilitation contract.
No, I've got interlocal agreement with DFY, DCYF, and I got Gretchen slated on that. Do I have the wrong agenda?
So you may have an item that, I think, go back to the first meeting, you may have an old agenda. I apologize for that. There is an additional item 4E related to the vocational rehabilitation contract. And this particular proposal is for you to approve the contract with the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services Division Vocational Rehabilitation Program to place high school graduates with developmental disabilities into the workforce. Is this an ongoing contract that we provide the services to those youth in need? And the terms of this contract is from October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2023. Under this contract, the county receives between $8,670 or to $9,400 for each high school student that we have placed with this developmental disabilities that we have placed in the workforce. I apologize that you don't have this item in front of you, Commissioner.
No, I do. I had it in my other agenda. So I swapped them out. So I'm with you.
So Annalise is here to elaborate on this proposal.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you so much for that introduction, Romero. I really appreciate it. As he mentioned, this is an ongoing contract that we've had with Division of Vocational Rehabilitation for multiple years. This provides opportunities for high school transition students, which are students ages 18 to 21, to be able to access employment opportunities within the community. This is a $0 contract, but as Romero mentioned, there are outcome payments associated with successful placement in the job force. So I welcome any questions that you might have or any further elaboration that you might like.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions at this time.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Annalise.
Thank you.
All right, then we'll go to what's now 4F, interlocal agreement with DCYF. And Gretchen's here for that one.
Yeah, Commissioner, this particular proposal is for you to consider signing a contract with the Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Families for the amount of $937,602.55. And the purpose of this contract is from July 1st, 2021 through July 31st, 2022. And this is focused on the Nurse Family Partnership Program. It provides services to mothers eligible for services in Thurston, Lewis, and Mason counties. The Nurse Family Partnership Program works with mothers to provide support, resources, and coaching to help families have the best outcomes. And again, this is a 3-county program that we provide. And just to give you a perspective, we have a total of 125 families that we have helped on the 3-county program. 35 families in Mason County, 51 families in Thurston County, and 38 families in Lewis County. Gretchen Thaller is here to elaborate on this proposal.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Gretchen Thaller, Maternal Child Health Nurse Family Partnership Manager. And thank you, Romero, for that introduction. This is a renewal of our contract with DCYF for another year. And it does allow us to continue serving 125 families in the 3-county regional area that we're serving. I welcome any questions that you may have.
Commissioner Mejia,
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards.
No, thank you, Gretchen, for all you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, good to go. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
4G, interagency agreement for well construction delegation.
So I read this item and I have a few gaps, so I will not be able to present this item to the board. So I will ask Eric Iverson to present this item and hopefully at least it can provide some clarity in my mind as to what the intent of this item is. Eric?
Hi, Eric Iverson, Environmental Health. So the well delegation program is an agreement with the State Department of Ecology for the inspection of newly constructed wells, also tagging existing wells and decommissioning of wells. We work with the Ecology's well program to visibly inspect 40% of all newly constructed wells and the 20% of all decommissioned wells, while 25% of those are all being done with the driller on site. So we've had this program for a long time. It brings in roughly $20,000 on an annual basis, and that fee is going to be based off of half of the cost for the notice of intent for constructing a well. Ecology splits that money with us. Provisions in the contract do indicate that we won't be exceeding staff time to cost more than what we do bring in, and those numbers are close, but we maintain that. I mean, that's the gist of it.
Ramiro, did you have any questions about that?
No, sir.
Commissioner Mejia?
I'll pass to Commissioner Edwards for now.
You say you've had this in place for a long time, but the money is coming from a new funding source?
The funding is, we've had the program since, I believe, 1996, some sort of an agreement with Ecology. And the money is dependent on how many wells are being constructed. So anytime a new well is being constructed, part of the process is that the drillers supply a notice of intent to construct a water well with the State Department of Ecology. That fee is $200 charged and submitted to Ecology. They split all those proceeds with us.
Okay, so that's not splitting the new $500 fee.
That has nothing to do with it.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out. Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I don't have any questions.
The only suggestion on the action is to not to exceed 10% as opposed to 25%. That's the standard, so we'll change that.
Not to exceed 10% of revenue expended.
Amendments, Eric. So the motion is to have that the director can approve amendments that they don't exceed 25% is what you wrote. What Ramiro is saying is that it shouldn't exceed 10%.
Oh, okay.
We'll change that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
The next set of items should be renumbered 5, just because it's follows 4. County manager renumbered as 5. So 5A would be the commissioner reports. 5B would be the review of combined schedule, and 5C would be go to the order and adjournment. So that covers us for October 5th. Let's go through a couple more items before we take our mid-morning break. Let's start with proclamations and awards.
Good morning, Amy Davis, clerk of the board. The proclamation for this afternoon, Voter Registration Day, is provided along with the draft for Domestic Violence Awareness Month and for National Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month for next week. Public Health, the Sheriff's Office, and the Prosecuting Attorney's Office have been invited. Also included in the packet is a draft of Commissioner Mentzer's proposed recognition for the 130th anniversary of Elks Lodge. If you'd like to review this, we can circle back next week or move forward with including this recognition on the agenda in a couple of weeks, so I can give advance notice to Elks so they can attend.
Questions for Amy or comments on the proposals here?
I did make some marks on mine, but, I mean, the concept is fine. I just thought there was a couple of things in there. I'll give it to you later, I guess.
Okay. But regarding the Elks piece?
Regarding?
The Elks, acknowledgement or?
Yeah, that's all. Yeah. Just, yeah.
Yeah, great,
Concept,
thank you.
fine.
Okay, good. Commissioner Mejia, did you have any problems with that concept for a recognition of the Elks?
No, sir.
Okay.
Okay, we'll include that on the agenda perhaps of October 12th, so we can give Elk some notice.
Yeah, that'd be good, and then we can add Commissioner Edwards, whatever he's got. Okay, so anything else about proclamations and awards then? Does that cover us? Amy, are we good?
Yes.
Board, any questions from the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Then let's go to advisory boards and commissions.
So a few items. First, we can address the Housing Authority. We are just circling back from last week after you've had a chance to review the information provided by Craig. I believe the staff recommendation is to advertise this notice. We can do so in the newspaper, social media, and our website, and leave it open for, say, 1 month. So time to get the notice out there and receive applications back. So if this satisfies the desire to post the vacancy and advertise, we can move forward with this by October 1.
Okay. Objections from the board to that proposal? A delay of 1 month to allow advertising, and then we've got Mr. Kitakwa, who seems like we're all potentially supportive of him if we don't get any other applications. I didn't hear anybody sort of voice any concerns, but do we want to do that, or does the board rather appoint Mr. Kitakwa?
I want to just get this straight. You were proposing that we wait for a little bit, right? To see if there's other applications.
Well, I did. I had said that. It's been about a month. We've been tossing this around. I just heard Amy say that was a suggestion, or I can't remember what you said, staff suggestion or recommendation to go ahead and have a formal advertising for a month. So that's what I'm just taking what she proposed and asking if the board concurs or would rather do it differently.
I guess my concern would be, are we going to do that for all boards and commissions now, from now on, as another workload on the clerk is what I don't, are we selecting one group out for something special? I guess that's what I'm asking. County manager's got his hand up.
Not necessarily. I think it's on a case-by-case basis. And the recommendation from the staff is based on the conversation the board had on this particular appointment. That perhaps the board would like to see additional applications. So I'm not suggesting that we're going to go through every single appointment, go through this process. This is just a way to respond to some of the comments that at least I've heard from the board to see if you would like to entertain other applications. So this is not all-encompassing. This is on a case-by-case basis, and this is just a proposal from staff.
Let me ask you.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you, Amy. What is it when you say when you say we'll advertise it? What steps are taken? Like, what's the workload? What are we affirmatively doing that we may not do for another? What are you proposing?
I would recommend we advertise in the newspaper, so creating an ad, just a short paragraph, with some information on the vacancy and the application process. So to post that and to share that on our social media channels, we can post it on our website as well.
I have a comment on that, sir.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
If we go down that path, I would like to have the application refer to all of the boards and commissions somehow, so we get coverage, so the public knows we've got these, not just one group, but gets to know we've got all these out here that we might want to let them know about. I guess I'm just a follow-up on that. Did I hear you say you're not, you had concerns earlier, and we've been talking about this. Are those concerns satisfied on your part? I guess I'm gonna try to defer to, I'd just soon go ahead and make the appointment if you're satisfied with it. If you're not, then I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I mean, I appreciate the consistency comment. My concern at the beginning was not, I wasn't trying to say we should be doing something affirmatively more for this position. I just wanted to make sure we weren't doing less, meaning we were being like, at the time we were told there was a vacancy, we were being handed an already vetted and picked successor, and being asked to approve it about a month ago and I hadn't even known that there was a vacancy coming or that somebody was, so it was more, it wasn't about doing something extra. It was just not treating this group the way we would treat any vacancy. I'm not sure we have to run a newspaper ad if that's not what we do for any other group. But, so I guess my concerns are a little bit satisfied in the sense that we did delay that decision and we've been kicking this around. I haven't gotten calls from anyone saying, oh, hold the presses, I want to apply for that position. So, I could go either way, I guess. There's nothing wrong with more public outreach on an important board like this. I don't have a problem with it, but I guess my concerns are, and I read the material that I had a chance since the last meeting to read what the executive director provided, and I'm satisfied with, it's good information. I still think there needed to be that opportunity for the public to understand there was a vacancy and apply. We've kind of had that, I guess, over the last few weeks. So I could go either way on whether we do this now, but so that's kind of where I'm at. I guess, Commissioner Mejia, do you have any thoughts on this?
Can I make a proposal? I feel like we should go forward with Mr. With Aaron. With Aaron. But I would also like to advertise, if possible, the open positions for the rest of our commissions, because we do have several openings, and just letting the public know, like, hey, these are all the openings that are available for Thurston County residents. But I found the letter from the executive director from Craig to be satisfactory. I mean, he went into a lot of detail on the process that he followed, and I do agree. If anyone was interested, I mean, we have been discussing this for a month, so I feel like if anyone was interested, we would have received an application by now saying, I am interested in this position.
And I guess I too was ready to move forward on the appointment, but I kind of follow up with what Commissioner Mejia said. I mean, that kind of matches what I'm saying. If we're going to get the word out there, we should get the word out there. I don't know, I can't even tell you how many boards and commissions we have, but 40 some, I guess. And I don't think we're ever going to know. We can't keep up on all of them. Ever since I've been here, we've never been able to keep up on every one of them. It seems like there's always some turnover going on. So I'm ready to move ahead with Aaron's appointment based on information that we've received from that group on satisfying that regard. But I too wouldn't mind putting out just some kind of an ad that for those folks in the community that are interested in serving on our boards, here's how you do it, kind of a thing. Or here's who to contact, or here's where to go on the website, or whatever.
Sure. We can advertise a post, an ad like that, encouraging all residents to take a look at our boards and commissions and apply.
So I'm good with it. So, Chair.
So, one other thing that I want to ask about, at the time that we got this letter and recommendation, we had been waiting for input from the Housing Authority on my proposal for term limits. And I've been bringing this up, and I brought it up many, many times. And we finally said, well, let's hear what the Housing Authority has to say. And then I guess I'm expressing what kind of where my frustration came from. Instead of getting a response to that, which I think we've given them a couple months to respond to, we get something, in my opinion, almost the exact opposite, which is, oh, here's a vacancy that we know about that you didn't know about, and here's our handpicked successor to fill it. Feeding exactly into some of the concerns in the community as to why I proposed term limits to begin with. So I'm wondering whether we ever got a response from the board of the Housing Authority about my proposal to have a 2-term limit, which is 10 years worth of service on that board, as being reasonable and appropriate, or not.
I have not, but I am following up with Craig after this discussion this week. So I can ask to have their response prior to next Tuesday's agenda setting.
Right.
So.
I guess in response to that, Chair, if I had my druthers, I guess I would just as soon go ahead with this appointment today. This has nothing to do with this gentleman. And apparently he's got a lot to add, but then maybe do some follow-up on that regard. I guess I really wasn't up on that. Did we send a request out, or was it?
Yeah, Amy reached out to them and requested feedback on the proposal of the term limits, and that's what she's.
Okay, so we just haven't got there yet, it sounds like.
We have not received any feedback from the Housing Authority.
Okay, well, we can do follow-up and let them know, hey, where we at on that issue, I guess, so.
Okay, well, so just to wrap this up, if we're going to send out if we're going to do an ad about my position is that if we're going to do an ad about all of our boards, I would prefer to include this one as well and delay the appointment. But I think I'm outvoted by my seatmates. What I'm hearing, they'd like to put this forward either today or next week for Mr. Katigwa. Is that an accurate summary?
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing, Commissioner.
I'm willing, I'm ready to go ahead and make the appointment, because I think the two issues are separate, so.
So we'll bring this item for your consideration next Tuesday for a formal appointment.
Okay, then that covers that covers Housing Authority. What else, Amy?
Yes, so this item is just informational. There is a vacancy on the Planning Commission. It is a seat in District 2. Commissioner Edwards' office has received, I believe at this point, a couple of applications for consideration, and we'll bring one forward for nomination in the coming weeks. So lastly, we've received 2 applications for the Veterans Advisory Board. The first from Heather Miles, who would be a new appointment. A friend encouraged her to look at the board and thought she'd be a good candidate, and she did and was interested. So she has sent in her application. The second application is from William Powell for reappointment. Mr. Powell currently presides as chair of the board, and his term expires September 30th. The Veterans Advisory Board membership sits up to 9 members. There are currently 5, with 1 from Districts 1 and 3, and 3 from District 2. I know Mark is expecting to receive reappointment applications from a couple of other members soon too. So we can circle back on these 2 applications next Tuesday, so you have time to review if you'd like, or I can take questions.
I have questions. So you said this committee sits 9 members?
Up to 9.
Okay, and so there's 4 vacancies.
Correct.
There's how many?
4 vacancies.
So we have 5 people and out of 9 that's
Yeah.
serving, and one of them is up for reappointment.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess I'm ready to go ahead and make sure we get these appointments in place, but
Commissioner Mejia, any?
this will bring us up to 7,
No.
6.
6. We don't have people jumping at all these committees is all, so.
Maybe this will be a good time to follow up on your question related to where they are and looking at Veterans Advisory Committee and recommendations. They have met on a couple of occasions. I believe the next meeting they will be working on some of the recommendations will be coming to the board shortly.
Okay.
So I asked Mark Muffin to keep me posted on a weekly basis, so keep you posted as to what the recommendations might be coming out from the Veterans Advisory Board.
So can we just have it lined up for next Tuesday's meeting, and then we'll have the week to review the applications more closely, and we can address any concerns at the agenda setting next Tuesday.
Yeah, that will be my recommendation. You just receive those applications. Maybe you have some questions while you review those applications, and we'll bring those items next Tuesday. The board goes for an appointment, we'll bring those up on the same day.
All right, so yeah, just have them on the consent agenda, and then we'll have it reviewed next Tuesday. Robin?
Sorry, I should have unmuted first. I have no concerns about the direction you're going in. I just wanted to add that according to state law, the board is required to solicit representatives from nationally recognized veteran services organizations for these vacancies. So we may want to do something specific to reach out for the remaining vacancies.
Did you catch that, Amy?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll follow up with Mark Muffin just to make sure that is the case.
Okay. We have PIO check-in, and then the first commissioner's item I think involves Superior Court, and I see Judge Wilson is here. I want to be respectful of her time. We're past our break time. So Judge, how much time do you have available to handle your item?
My morning calendar is concluded, fortunately, right on time to get to this meeting. I understood that it was the justice partners, not just the Superior Court, to talk about backlog.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, then thank you for reminding. So with that, I think we do need to, let's do PIO check-in, take a break, and then we'll jump into the court, because I think it's going to take a little more time than maybe a typical item.
Thank you. That works.
Okay, go ahead, Megan, if you're there.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. So I've been spending the majority of my time this week and last week working with Keeley on the logistics and communications planning around the Ensign Road and Martin Way Carpenter Road RV parking strategy. This includes developing the communications plan, creating a one-page fact sheet, and then working on logistics for the town hall panel for the surrounding businesses. I'm also having conversations with IT and the web coordinators work group this week to determine next steps on the website project. The apparent successful vendor we selected through the RFP process 2 years ago is still interested and willing to continue with contract negotiations. So they also have said they will honor the price they provided us at the beginning of the process. This allows us to move much more quickly because we will not have to go through a whole new RFP process. Our social media and Friday 5 subscribers continue to grow, which is good news. Brian's working on our annual report, so before the end of the year, we'll be able to provide you with an overview of our communications activities, as well as the growth in the reach of our community. We're also beginning the process of developing the communications plan for the next biennium. Either Brian or I will be setting up meetings with each of you to talk about your communications goals and expectations positions for the next 2 years, so we can ensure that that is reflected in our plan. And also based on the boards and commissions conversation, I've asked Brian to work with Amy on some social media posts as well as a article in the Friday 5 to announce vacancies and talk about the different boards and commissions that we have. So that will be coming soon. Pending any questions, that's what I have for you.
Questions for Megan?
No questions.
No question.
Okay, me neither. And then let's do item 8, briefing, public hearing, decision pending.
There's nothing pending, Commissioner.
Okay, then it's 10:37. We will adjourn till 10:50, and then we'll pick up with item 1, the court cases backlog item under item 9, Commissioners' items. Thank you.
You're on, Commissioner.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We're back. It's 10:50 a.m. on the dot. Thanks, everybody. And we are picking back up in the middle of our Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session with item 9.1, court cases backlog. This is a follow-up from a board discussion last week about whether to release a certain portion of our federal relief funds toward certain needs of the court. There were questions from the board. So we have an illustrious panel here of judicial stakeholders, Superior Court Presiding Judge Mary Sue Wilson, Christy Peters from our Prosecuting Attorney's Office, Patrick O'Connor, Director of Public Defense, our County Clerk, Linda Enlow, and I see Frankie Peters representing District Court. All right, great. So Ramiro, I'm going to pass this over to you and or Robin to kind of walk through what, and then the board can ask the questions that we had last week and hopefully reach some decisions today.
Yeah, allow me to frame and maybe Robin can fill in the gaps. This is a follow-up to the American Rescue Plan. Earlier in the year, we provided some recommendations to the board. And one of those recommendations was to set aside just about $8 million to address the backlog, court cases backlog as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic over the last 18 months. The board made a preliminary agreements to set aside those for now, knowing they will be coming back with a specific request as to when you can move portions of those allocations to the approved amounts, so we can start working on that. I provided to you last week a table that we work with all the law and justice partners to give us a perspective as to how much really the impact is to start addressing the court cases backlog. Is a table also included on your packet this morning. In my recommendation last week, it was for the board to consider releasing $2 million to start working and addressing the backlog cases. I believe the number floats around 1,800 cases that we need to address. And this is an attempt to begin chipping away to that, knowing that perhaps it's going to take a couple of years to address all the backlog. And at this point, it was my suggestion last week was to for you, the board, to consider to releasing $2 million. During that conversation, the board had some questions related to what is it that they will be accomplishing if the board decides to release those $2 million at this time. The board would like to hear specifics, and you asked me to invite this wonderful panel this morning for them to give you their perspective as to where they are in terms of the backlog cases, and perhaps answer any questions you may have to specific areas of the law and justice.
Okay, I'm not sure. I voted to release it, so my seatmates had the questions. I'm going to kind of defer to them in terms of letting them ask the different stakeholders what they feel like they need to hear. So I'll start with Commissioner Mejia.
No, I voted against it, so I don't have any questions for it.
Well, okay, well then I guess it'll get to me maybe. My question was just what are we going to get with this expenditure? That was the only question I had. And if we set aside 8, did we need to kick loose 1, 2, 3? And was there a time frame that we were up against? And the legal obligation, something or another.
That's separate.
That's separate, but I know, but it's kind of tied in that we need to get to that point to find out if that's what we have to pay out.
Because the legal obligations is related to the Blake decision. This is the backlog and court cases related to the COVID-19.
But there's no time commitment on the Blake thing to, so if we don't ever get to them, it's okay?
No, the Blake decisions are already included on your.
Yeah. But I mean, won't all this backlog and everything have to do kind of working together with that whole process?
I would assume in terms of resources, yes, because the same offices and departments will be the ones who deal with the Blake decision as well as the backlog cases. I think that's where see what is the nexus between the two in terms of resources? Is that the question?
Yeah, and we've done certain things like Superior Court, we've got that building rented and renovated, all that. What are we gonna get above and beyond? Where are we going with it? That's all. I mean,
Somebody wants to jump in. I mean, I can go down the line, but if I'm just going to leave it to the panel to kind of, who wants to try to tackle any of that?
Commissioner Menser, perhaps I could start, because essentially I think that's where the cases start. They're all kind of in a holding pattern. These are cases that are referrals that have been continuing to backlog throughout, that our office has not had the opportunity, because we have no resources to review them due to multiple circumstances of the pandemic. For instance, the court has had to, because of the pandemic, restrict what types of, how many people can come into court, what type of calendars they can have. There has been obviously limited restrictions for numbers of people that can be in the court, but the biggest issue, quite frankly, is the lack of ability, because we do not have enough resources to review these cases based on all of the other issues that have happened during the pandemic. So essentially, the number of 1,800 cases that Ramiro referred to, that number, and Ramiro can correct me, I believe that was 7 to 10 days ago. That's growing. I think when John wrote the initial letter to the commissioners regarding a COVID backlog, I believe that was in late June or early July, and the number was somewhere in the 1,400s. So just to give you an idea that it's continuing to grow. The longer that the court decides to not take action regarding the backlog will continue to grow. Essentially, what the majority of those cases are, these are cases where the defendants have not been arrested and they're not in front of the court on a preliminary appearance. Those are the cases that have the highest priority, and that's where we have been focusing all of our attention. That's where the clerk's office, the court, both in district and superior court, as well as public defense, all of those cases, I think all of us would probably say that we're seeing a concentration of the most serious cases. That's what we're prioritizing as a criminal justice system in Thurston County, which is the right thing to do. That being said, there are multiple referrals now, over 1,800, that have not been reviewed for charging possibility. So there are multiple victims out there in Thurston County that have been victims of robberies, thefts, other types of crime that our office has not reviewed and has not had the opportunity to see whether or not this is, for instance, a case that is appropriate for a diversion, a pre-charge diversion, a post-charge diversion. I know that the commissioners are well aware when Mary Ann comes before you to indicate that she has pretrial service individuals that are waiting for more cases in these pre-charge and post-charge. We're not able to provide that because we don't have the ability to review those lower level cases at this time, because they're all part of the COVID backlog. Another thing that the court has had to do because of the backlog, and I believe it's been now over 18 months, Judge Wilson can correct me on the dates, that the court has not had the ability to have a first look calendar. That was primarily the calendar that we would really be looking at to review these backlog cases, see if they're appropriate for charging, see if they're appropriate for other alternatives, including all of our alternative courts, including the diversion programs that I've aforementioned. So for all of those reasons, that's the important thing. What we are starting to see, and I don't know if the commissioners are starting to see, more and more calls from the public. Why aren't you looking at our case? Why aren't you doing anything? And we don't have the resources because it's not a priority case where someone has been arrested and has been in front of the court for a preliminary appearance. When I just wanted to address the numbers issue, because I think this is something that will be helpful for all the other parts of the criminal partners in the criminal justice system for Thurston County. When we say 1,800 cases or whatever the number would be today on September 28th, which is somewhere high north of that, we're talking about the cases that our office would need to review. What we are anticipating is that we are going to be reviewing with a higher level scrutiny than we would typically do. And what that means is, in a normal world without COVID, whether it's Thurston County or anywhere in the state of Washington or across the country, typically most of the prosecutors' offices charge somewhere in the 66 to 67% of the cases after they've been reviewed and referred. So that automatically drops that 1,800 cases down to a number of about, in a normal world, about 1,200 that would be seen by the clerk's office, by the court, by defense. There's always about a third of cases that are referred to our office that no other part of the criminal justice system really ever sees, because we've declined the case. It's not, we don't believe it's sufficient for prosecution, or we are using an alternative type of criminal justice alternative before it even gets into the criminal justice system. What John Thunheim is proposing now, because of the circumstance, because of the extreme backlog, that we are going to be looking at these referrals with an even higher level of scrutiny. And we're anticipating of a filing of those 1,800 plus cases in the neighborhood of 1,000. That would be essentially for the clerk, the court, the defense, to be looking at about 1,000 cases added to what they already are dealing with in their system. But to Commissioner Edwards' point regarding Blake, we'd be using the same approach that we're, I think, as a system are using in Blake. It's literally impossible for all of the departments to attempt to work on all of the Blake cases at once because the number is so voluminous. What we're all trying to do is work in a priority area, obviously in Blake, as far as the cases that are going to be the most urgent, meaning the defendant's sentence is going to be affected within the next couple months, versus someone whose sentence may be affected in the next couple of years. Obviously, that's what public defense, they're looking at those cases very well in prioritizing in that arena. We would do the same thing on these cases, the COVID backlog cases. So essentially, when you hear the numbers, we're using a very educated guess of about a 56, 57%, which is a reduction of about 10% from what we would normally charge and put into the system. So I think that would help all of my criminal justice partners in getting an idea of, okay, if we're looking at 1,000 cases, what does that mean for my office? What does that mean for our personnel? What does that mean for our request if the commissioners want to address this backlog? What does that mean? So 1,800 would be our office. We're expecting about 1,000 cases into the system. And then Commissioner Menser, I believe that John Thunheim actually gave two different proposals to the board. One was, we call it kind of a fast track proposal, and one is kind of a longer track proposal. Yep. And so that would be, what our office would need. One, I believe, we believe, based on our current ability to review, charge cases and decline cases, the fast track could be done potentially by the end of 2023, and the more moderate track could be done by the end of 2024.
Just as a follow-up to what Christy said, that's a good breakdown. Are we going to be utilizing HR or anything? I'm wondering about, are we going to utilize FTEs, overtime, extra help, temp employees? How are we going to get to where you folks want to go? That was kind of the bottom line question.
Excellent question. And Patrick O'Connor and I have spent probably too much time trying to analyze the actual impact of what this would really mean in a COVID backlog approach. And I say that because we're looking at it from kind of the attorney and support staff perspective. But long story short, I think the cleanest way to approach this from the HR perspective is to do similar to what the county commissioner's approach was regarding Blake, and to essentially say, this is the backlog, like this is the Blake situation, and completely isolate that issue so that will make all of the financial people, specials, as far as from auditing purposes, I think it will just be a cleaner way to approach it. Now, that being said, every single person involved in criminal justice in this meeting and within Thurston County can say there's been a COVID impact beyond that. That is actually being extremely conservative, and it's just addressing the urgent issues. There's definitely a COVID backlog on delay of cases. The court's only able to, at a maximum, have 2 jury trials at one time, and the commissioners, I think, are well aware that there were several months that we were not able to do any types of jury trials. So all of those types of cases were clearly affected by the backlog, but the actual personnel impact of what does that mean would take a great deal of time to absolutely figure out. And so our proposal from our office is to just be very clear cut, make it very similar to what the county adopted regarding Blake, and talk about exclusive positions to work only on the backlog. And from our perspective, those would be the first, this is really what first look is, right? We have not been able to look at first look cases as far as getting cases out of the traditional criminal justice system because of all of the parameters and restrictions of the pandemic. We would be able to do that with the additional COVID backlog, because those are the cases we expect going into more alternatives, more treatment courts, that type of thing.
I see Commissioner Mejia's got her hand up, Chair.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Mejia.
So you mentioned the courts can only handle 2 jury trials. How many jury trials have there been in these past weeks?
I don't know if Judge Wilson can answer that one. We have had several.
That's a great question, Commissioner Mejia. I just finished a 3.5-week murder trial using the Chandler Court facility last Friday, and we're starting a civil jury trial today at Chandler. We had 3 criminal trials ready to start yesterday. None of them are going forward because of continuances at the last minute, but we continue to have scheduled weekly using our 2 big courtrooms, Chandler and 102, to have jury trials. But every week we don't have 2 going because sometimes there is a last minute plea, for instance, on the case that's scheduled. In my new role of presiding, I'm looking for ways we can avoid having readiness and then not having a case go forward, like stacking civil cases behind the criminal cases if all criminal cases go off. But I will say, in response to what Christy said in terms of the times where we were doing no jury trials at the recommendation of public health, that put pressure on the system in a way that right now we have a little bit of relief. And that is because we're setting criminal trials and we have been doing them since March with no interruption, that encourages parties to resolve cases because they know their criminal jury trial date is real. So when we had those 3-4 month periods with no trials, there's a lot more stagnation. So I just want to highlight that we're not doing nothing. Pre-pandemic, we could have 3 jury trials going, 12-person jury trials, sometimes 4, but usually 3. And now we have 2, but we're also doing things like encouraging 6-person juries for civil cases because we can use it. We can do a 6-person jury in one of our smaller courtrooms. I hope that answers that topic. I was hoping Patrick might weigh in on some of what Christy said so the court could respond to both offices.
Okay, let's go to Pat, and then we'll go back to Judge Wilson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, or I guess good morning, commissioners. A couple things that I'd just like to start with, I think, for your own background. I think it's important, and what we've talked about is it's important on how we're defining what the backlog is, right? So when you hear the word backlog, what does that mean to you? So I certainly think, as you're well aware, one way to define the backlog is the impacts on cases that have gone into the system throughout the pandemic and will continue to be in the system throughout the pandemic, for the next handful of months, perhaps even longer, as a result of the impacts of the pandemic. So that's one way to define the backlog that we're experiencing. What Christie's presented is another impact or another way to define the backlog, which are cases that have been referred to the prosecutor's office for charging that have not been charged. So I think it's important to think of it in a couple of different ways. But what my understanding and what's been proposed by the prosecutor's office is a funding opportunity to address the backlog in terms of the cases that have not made it into the system. But I don't think any of us are underappreciating the impacts of the pandemic on cases that have been in the system and coming in the system all along and have experienced delays as a result of the pandemic. So how do you put a price tag on that? And that's a real challenge. In terms of what's being proposed in terms of the backlog of referred cases, these are exclusively adult felony cases. And this is one point in time, right? So the number that the prosecutor is giving you is as of whatever, last month, but it's one point in time. It's not as though referrals won't continue to come to the prosecutor's office throughout the next 2 years. And so funding at this point, with the understanding that cases will continue to be referred to the prosecutor's office that don't meet the current criteria to be arrested and immediately charged. So I think it's fair to say that there are potentially more backlog in that definition cases along the way. Whether this is funding for the next 24 to 36 months is, the prosecutor has a couple different proposals. So I think it's important that we're looking at this definition of backlog very specific to the cases that have been referred by law enforcement to the prosecutor's office throughout the pandemic that have not been reviewed for charging, right? So, we have, in our efforts to try to define what that impact would be should the board fund this opportunity for the prosecutor to review and file cases. Obviously, for our office, we're reactive. These aren't, discretionary decisions by us. So we're trying to get a sense of what that would look like on a monthly basis. And of course, these are criminal cases, right? So they are not finite in time. A criminal case does not last 30 days. So cases that get filed in year 2, in month 6 of year 2 will go into the following year. So I think we have to be sensitive on the nature of these cases and the nature of the work, that they're not finite in time. So they may carry us, there may be work that goes into 2025 as a result of filings in 2023. So it's very dynamic in that regard. So for future expenses as well.
Okay. You took a breath. I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, Commissioner, go ahead. I'm wrapping up. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Okay, I'm still wondering about HR, and are you gonna, overtime, extra help, temp employees? How you gonna do it?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, these would have to be funded full time, at least for the defense attorneys I can speak for, based on the number of cases that have been projected to be filed every month. I know what I would need for full-time FTEs to meet that. We also have additional expenses of public defense because a percentage of those are going to be legal conflict of interest cases. We also need professional services, experts, investigation, transcription expenses, all the other expenses that come with defense. So these would be end date positions, Commissioner, and that, I think that's sort of the challenge, is setting an end date position.
Are they permanent?
Currently, based on the projections over the next 2 years, 2 to 3 years, depending on which way the commissioners would go to support the request from the prosecutor's office. And it's going to be a challenge. I'm going to be honest. Recruiting end date positions is not easy to do, but that's how we would have to do it on our end. Is FTEs to meet the demand of the work, and then additional funding for the other defense expenses that come with any normal case.
You're shovel ready, it sounds like.
Okay, I see several hands.
Shovel ready, right? Okay.
Quick question for Ramiro, then I'll go to.
And Commissioner, just to let you know, the Mary Ann Clear is in the room if you have any questions related to pretrial services.
Okay, great, thank you. I can't see her. Real quick, Ramiro, the proposal on the table that started this whole discussion is about the release of $2 million from the $8 million that was just kind of bucketed aside, earmarked. And, my argument last week was, I'm not necessarily agreeing that it's 8 million, but, if we release 2 million, we can see how that works and how far we can get with that. So that made sense to me. But I guess my question is, if we release the 2 million, how would that get divvied up between the different departments? Because the 8 million is a conglomeration of everybody's needs. How would we deal with the 2 million? Robin, you got your hand up.
So each office and department would set up tracking codes to code their time and expenses to the recovery fund that you've established. So it wouldn't be a matter of divvying it up front. They would start the process that the board agrees to and start to charge. And from that, we could gauge about how much more, how far is 2 million going to go? How much more are they going to need? When are they going to need the next approval?
Okay, Judge Wilson, then Christy, then Frankie.
Okay, I'll try to be brief. I want to echo what Patrick said in terms of defining backlog. How you define it matters. Christy's done a great job of focusing on the things in the hopper that haven't hit the system yet. You all recall the flip effort where we aimed at moving felony cases through the case processing to resolution and eliminate those cases that were pending for an unreasonable amount of time. And we made a lot of progress. And then the pandemic came in and the court reductions and the periods of time with no criminal jury trials have impacted that we have cases that are waiting from everybody's perspective too long for trial and resolution. What I said earlier is we're making progress because we've been doing jury trials consistently since March, but because it's at a lower rate, we still have those. So that's another important component of backlog to think about and for the justice partners to work on. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that from the court's perspective, we have backlogs in different categories. So right now we're focusing this discussion on felony criminal cases, but we have backlogs on our civil trials, civil and domestic. And so when we talk about deployment and resource, we have other measures that we identified. And I was looking at a June 1st memo from Pam that identified the areas that we wanted to deploy new resources, and that's to address each of those categories. So I don't think today's discussion is about that, but I wanted to address that in terms of the idea of the first look calendar. As long as our jury trials remain constricted, and of course we want to open up as soon as public health allows, but as long as they remain limited to 2 because of space, we do want to talk about options for approaching things like a first look calendar, but we have to be mindful of what Patrick said, which is you open the door, and if it doesn't resolve on the first look calendar, it's added to the long-term case life numbers, and we have to make sure that we're ready for all that. I also want to recognize we have our 2 operations managers on the phone today if we have any questions for them. And then next week we get our new court administrator, Misty Robeson, who will be joining us and ready to hit the ground running on this. So I'll answer any questions. I just wanted to high level remind how we're thinking about and that we have multiple areas that we're working on for backlogs.
Christy, you had a response.
Actually, I just wanted to also incorporate, I realize we've been focusing our discussion on Superior Court and wanted to indicate that District Court obviously is impacted as well by the pandemic. And Frankie probably can speak more to actual specifics, but what the difference is in District Court from our office perspective is that the cases are actually charged already by the officer on the scene typically. And so they're already in the system, just waiting to go forward. But it's not something where the office needs to review and consider as far as the backlog that's hanging out there. But there are voluminous cases that have been charged that are not able to get through into the system in the district court as well. And so that's another, it will need to be handled in a different type of approach, but there's still a huge amount of cases there. And that would affect, obviously, you know, public defense, pretrial services, district court as well.
Frankie?
Thanks so much, Christy. And that's exactly what I want to talk about. As far as with the district court, I mean, our backlogs are about 1,600, but those backlogs that's just case specific, right? When we're talking about the amount of resources in judicial time, clerk time, and everything in between, we're talking arraignment, pre-trial, confirmation, jury trial. You have multiple points within these stages. So if you're looking at specific hearings, you can quadruple that easily in time to end up reaching some sort of resolution with those. And that's the biggest issue that we end up seeing over at district court. Even with the efficiencies that we built into processes, we've been trying to stay progressive throughout the last 18 months in everything that we do. We're still seeing, because of the high caseloads of district court, for every 200 resolutions we may get one month, we're going to have 200 new filings the next month in 2021. That's just going to keep those piling up. And we've actually kind of reached this point where everything's even. We're not necessarily growing a backlog, but we're also not really chipping away at it like we'd like to. And that's even with running 4 courtrooms. We'll have all 4 courtrooms ran at least 4 days a week by the end of this year, with the implementation of a second jury trial every single week, because we've got to extend those 2 days. So with 4 judges, 4 courtrooms running at all times, we're still kind of seeing that baseline being reached. And that's why our request for that funding to be released would include those FTEs. We have to have another clerk, we have to have another judge so that we can address more cases. Right now, and throughout the last 18 months, we've been ongoing kind of changing what our dockets look like, what our calendars look like, still leaving those virtual appearances open, because that really allows us to have more hearings per docket. Just so that we can account for all the guidance and safety and measures that we need to take into account. So even with that, we're only looking at 40 to 50 cases that we can put onto a single calendar, and kind of maxing that out along with what we've been seeing data-wise. We're still not chipping away at those backlogs like we'd like to. And as we've maxed out the number of judges we've had and the number of courtrooms we have, the only way to kind of logically progress in that aspect is to have those additional FTEs so that we can support additional hearings, so that we can actually address those matters in a more efficient way. And I do appreciate Judge bringing up the jury trials as well. Here in 2020, we had 12 jury trials total, and we're used to having about 60 a year. So that's kind of the impact that we have with that. We're hoping that we can increase those further. But again, when we're slowly increasing those, we're not going to be able to have that impact, because a lot of those case counts, a lot of those proceedings are happening early on in the process. It's those arraignments, those pre-trials and everything like that that's really building up the logjam right now.
Okay.
Chair?
I'm going to ask the board to, yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
Just real quick, have any of you noticed any less cases coming forward because of the restrictions the legislature put on law enforcement that took effect in July? Have you noticed anything slowing down, or everything status quo the same, or we're too early to figure it out?
I can say that we're obviously don't receive any UPCS cases anymore. And what we have done, I guess I should have already addressed this, is that any cases that were in the backlog that were pending that would have been affected by the State v. Blake decision, we have already declined all of those. Those have already, that was the one kind of screening tool that we did go through to make sure that there were no cases in the pending backlog regarding that.
Okay, I'm kind of ready to go along with the chair's proposal. So.
Okay, Robin.
So I would just like to add regarding the money. There are 2 criteria that are important to being able to claim the Recovery Act money for this expense. First, you've heard all of the partners talk about defining the backlog. That is the most important thing so that we're able to track the time and the cost spent specifically on the backlog to ensure that that's an allowable expense under the Act. And then the second criteria is we must be able to measure the outcomes. So our report to U.S. Treasury requires us to have a performance measure for this. And what we should be talking about is some type of benchmark that we can measure against to show that the backlog is shrinking over time. And we'll have to report that every quarter. So the group has done an excellent job of attempting to define the backlog, and then we'll be talking about precisely how to report on the measures. But these are the requirements to be able to claim the money.
Okay, so the board has a decision point about release of this money. Are there any other questions the commissioners need to ask in order to feel comfortable making that decision? And Linda, I'm sorry that I didn't, if you have anything to add, that's great, but we're just a little short of time.
Yeah, just real quickly, I just want to make sure everyone understands that Tani has worked very closely with Public Defense and the prosecutor's office in coming up with the numbers that the clerk has put forth.
Thank you, Linda.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Mejia, Commissioner Edwards, any final questions for the panel?
I do not.
No questions, I have comments, but.
Should we let the panel, should we release the panel, Ramiro, and then?
Yes, please. And thank you very much. I really appreciate you making the time in such a short notice. So very good information, and I'm sure the board is appreciative of all the feedback they've received this morning. So thank you so much.
I'm not sure the chair heard Commissioner Mejia say she had something more to add.
Well, I think we're gonna
have
Okay, we're gonna have to have a discussion now, but they don't need, they can stay if they'd like to, or they can go back to doing what they need to do. So appreciate your time. Okay, so I guess I'll start with Commissioner Mejia in terms of a further discussion on this item that we had delayed till this week to hear that information from the panel. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, so I guess I was opposed to it since last week. And just with this information, I still feel that we're very premature. I think we should definitely go through the budget process first after seeing the request that came through last week and just seeing the page of requests from the COVID backlog. For me, I feel we have a responsibility to our community to reassure them that we're using this one-time funding appropriately and that we are that we're being measured. And I feel you know, sometimes I'll use Commissioner Edwards' words, throwing money at an issue sometimes does not solve it right away, especially because if we're going to consider, I mean, where is the staff going to go? Do we have enough space for the staff? There's so many unanswered questions. You know, I asked about the jury trials, and, you know, one started this week, and then, you know, they just finished a 3.5 jury trial for a murder case, but I didn't really get a specific, you know, of how many trials have been going. I've been checking, and a lot of these weeks, jury trials are not going forward for criminal cases. They're being dismissed the day of. So at this time, I'm just thinking that we're acting prematurely. I feel that my other two seatmates probably don't feel the same, but it's kind of where I'm at.
Commissioner Edwards.
I guess as long as we're talking about a lesser amount of money to be released now, that's kind of where I'm coming from, because Marianne, for an example, probably has to review a bunch of cases to see, are they, you know, can she do something with it? Then Patrick, he's got to look at them and see, can he do something with it? And then the prosecutor's office, you know, so it goes right on through, and all of it could affect the clerk's office. So I'm just afraid if we withhold everything, we're kind of holding back on the tools they might need to move forward at this point in time, I do not want to give up $8 million at this point, but I don't mind starting some kind of a trickle release. I want to be responsive to Commissioner Mejia's concerns, but I also recognize this group is looking to get the ball rolling. So I'm going to make a proposal right now, and we can talk about this next week. Let's kick $1 million loose out of there, so at least we get something going. So nobody can say, well, you didn't give us anything, because let's see what they need to do. And then if we find out, well, somebody needs 2 FTEs and exactly what that'll be, and they're going to accomplish this, okay, then we can consider that. So that's where I'm at.
It's rare to see Commissioner Edwards in the middle of the other 2 commissioners, but such as it is, I still support $2 million release. And so I don't know where that leaves us.
I would support Commissioner Edwards of 1 million first.
Okay.
All right, you got 2 votes for that then.
Well, I think okay, thank you, commissioners. We'll move ahead and.
And not a lot of time to discuss it.
Well, there's 2 commissioners.
Right, that's right, I know. That's
So
the way it works.
we'll move to the approved column, $1 million, and we'll report back as to how the progress in terms of addressing the backlog as the time comes. So,
I do have a question for Robin, if I could, since we're kind of on this topic of the spreadsheet of the court backlog versus the general fund policy requests. I see on the general fund policy requests, 5th courtroom FJC, and then I see on the COVID sheet, courtroom work at FJC. They're not the exact same amount, but they're pretty darn close. Is that the same item? And if so, is it both amounts are needed, or we're going to alternatively fund it from ARPA money, or how does that work?
So I don't know that the court has proposed them as the same item, but we can certainly look and see if they are. I'll check into that, and if it's possible. So one of the things we hadn't done yet on this court backlog proposal was scrub, if you will, to ensure that all of this is an eligible cost. So we'll make sure that it is before we charge it to ARPA, and I will specifically look to see if these 2 items are the same thing.
I bring it up, Judge Wilson and I just had a check-in this morning, and she was impressing upon me the importance of that courtroom there. And I don't know if we'll have the money to do that, but I would be, based on her comments, it would be a high priority for me if it's eligible for the relief money. And it's on the spreadsheet anyway, so we kind of have it earmarked. So I'd like to know that and really push for that if that's a possibility to get that work done with that funding.
We'll check it.
Okay, very good. Then let's go to our next item, county revenue update.
Can I have a comment? Can I, Commissioner Menser?
Yeah.
I know the Tamashon sewer main was another one for 300,000. Did we make a decision on that?
Yeah, that was approved.
Okay, I was wondering. I don't remember if it got approved or not.
It was a 2-to-1 vote.
2-1.
Okay.
Commissioner Mesa voted against it, 2 of you voted for it.
Okay.
So we'll move forward with that. Thank you, commissioners. The next item on your agenda is related to 3,000 Pacific. I briefly mentioned to you that last week we presented to you a financial plan that included some reductions in county revenue of just about $1.5 million starting in 2022. And we provided that impact level. So what we did last week is just taking that 1.5 out of the previous plan that we presented to you. And the result of that, you had at that time, 1.5 million available for you to consider new expenditures for 2022 and another 1.5 million in 2023. Fast forward, I briefly mentioned to the board on Thursday, Robin was going to go through and describe the budget, particularly as to really what they get a little bit closer related to what the needs of this 3,000 Pacific really could be, and look at other options in more detail. So before you is the revised financial projection related to the general fund. And I will let Robin walk us through as to, the some of the rationale behind the numbers.
So good morning, Commissioners. Robin Campbell, Assistant County Manager, and you have the latest version of the forecast, certainly not the last one that you will see before you make budget decisions. But what we've done in an abbreviated way is to take a look at the major pieces of this forecast. The places that have changed since you've seen it last, I have adjusted the numbers that come from Questica because currently the budget team is looking at every request in Questica, making sure it's accurate, getting questions answered from offices and departments. There are adjustments to dollar amounts. So this version reflects the amounts in our budget system as of September 22nd. The changes were in I should share my screen so I can point at things. So if you can see my cursor here in the revenue side, all other has been adjusted. The lost revenue remains the same, although we could get a little more since we just lost a lot of revenue from the state. The potential to claim lost revenue might be a little more positive. The Blake decision numbers remain the same. Other revenue adjustments have changed. And the policy level revenue, when we were looking at that, we found that we had counted the reduce the road diversion in the policy level numbers, and I separate it out from you on this forecast so that you can see the impact of it. So the reduction in road diversion is now no longer double counted. The property tax numbers have increased. That's adjusted, and I have not been able to get the latest sales tax numbers from the Department of Revenue. I've contacted them. I hope to have that today, but the sales tax numbers remain the same. It's possible that those will go up in the next few weeks. On the expenditure side, the adjustments are in the Blake decision. The clerk continues to refine the amounts of LFOs that are the potential payout for Blake, so that's a little bit less. The other maintenance adjustments have changed a little. And the amount of the Pacific Avenue lease, one of the things that I had let you know about was I had been using a placeholder of 1.7 million, which was the average estimated impact of the general fund over time. Now that we are much farther along, we were able to allocate square footage, assumed square footage in the building based on the design work that has been done. So I'm also applying the beginning lease and then the inflation factors over time rather than an average over the years. And the general fund amount has come down by quite a bit based on square footage allocation and then assigning the actual lease amounts. So what I have plugged in here in this little gray box is based on the current information of revenue and other expenditures at maintenance level and a 2.5% COLA, you can afford 2.5 million in policy level requests. And here is the long-term graph and what that looks like with all of these assumptions in place. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
I have some concerns, Chair, when the time comes.
Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
You've heard me talk for several years now about the benefit of the point of delivery on sales tax. The problem is we're also going to be faced with the reality of that not always continuing to grow to the, you've got it going up by 2022, for the 2022 budget of $2.5 million. I don't think that's going to happen. And the reason I say it's not going to happen is because we have been going up consistently because of point in time. But I don't think that's going to, I don't think that buying push is going to continue to escalate at that rate. I think it's going to stay roughly the same. But I don't know, as we know that, if we take a turn in our economy, you know, obviously that might slip. But it can't go up continually because we don't have that many more citizens living in unincorporated Thurston County. And we gave up the golf course here recently. So how many ever citizens live there? That goes to Lacey now. So in the end, I just don't see this $2.5 million coming to fruition for 2022. And that's kind of almost the dollar amount you're saying that might be available for policy. I just don't see it. I think by the end of this period, and we finally get to budget, when we're authorizing the budget, we're going to have $0 for policy. And I'd gladly answer any questions anybody has about why I don't think that 24.5 is going to go to 27. I mean, I don't see the continued growth there. It's going to stay static, possibly, if we're lucky, but it's certainly not going to continue to go up at that rate. So, I mean, that's one issue. I don't want to steal all the time here. I've got some other issues on the topic. I just don't know if I need to put a lot of time into them or not at this point.
Robin?
So in response to that, the current growth rate coming out of the pandemic is we've grown year over year at 26%. And I completely agree that that kind of growth absolutely will not continue. However, even though other jurisdictions have projected the growth rate in the future year at much greater than 10%, I have a 10% growth rate built in for 2022 because 26% is not going to continue into the future. And then in 2023, I drop it back to 5%, which is a conservative growth rate in Thurston County. Now, are these numbers wrong? Absolutely. They are not going to be 10% and 5%, but I do believe that these are conservative estimates and we will continue to see growth, if only based on the construction that we're seeing, which is the second largest revenue stream for the county. When we look at what is the money that's coming in, it's retail's number one and construction is a close second. So we're going to continue to see a really strong growth, at least for the next year or two.
And just real quick, I got Commissioner Mejia next. Just on that particular point that Commissioner Edwards made, I've been asking at every juncture about the point in time and in terms of how we compare to the cities. And at every point in time, the answer has been cities are growing at exactly the same as us, which means it's not the point in time. I wish it were, because that would be a more long-term sustainable resource for the county that we could count on. But that has not been what the data has shown at all. So I just want to make that point. Commissioner Mejia?
Yeah, also to Commissioner Edwards' point, Robin, I have a question. And, you know, I take 2020 and 2021 in terms of like sales tax to be an abnormality. So wouldn't the growth in 2022 follow from 2019?
Because I don't count these past 2 years really as kind of like a stableness because of course the pandemic, but you know, following in that track of just growth, I mean, from 2019 to 2022, that seems like quite a jump.
Right. So I'm going to bring up the sales tax report that I shared with the board. Let me, again, unshare my screen. So here we are. And what you see, and this is just through July, is some pretty constant growth. And here's the economic downturn at the start of the pandemic when we saw it drop and then bounce back up. But what you see here, way back here in 08, 09, coming into 10, this was the Great Recession. Then a little growth, and we had some bumpy ride through 12. But since 2013, we've been at pretty steady growth at an average of over 5% per year. So unless we expect that we're about to hit another significant recession, and all the economists say that we are not, unless that happens, 5% is a very conservative estimate for growth in Thurston County, and 10% next year is not an unreasonable expectation.
I have a follow-up at some point, Chair.
Yep, you're up.
Did Commissioner Mejia get her answers? You done? Okay. Well, that 2.5% from 21 to 22. I mean, I just
2.5%.
2.5 million. What did I say? 2.5%. Yeah, 2.5 million. I just don't see that continued growth. We're talking about right now, I don't know what the workforce that's going to get adjusted because of the pandemic when they lose their jobs for, on the vaccination issue, for an example. I don't know what's going to happen at the state level or at the county level, but those two combined are a pretty good chunk of workforce. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if it'll be 10%, 5%, or somewhere in between or more. I really don't know. But I think it is going to play into this whole thing as time goes on. And we've already had that growth, and then we would be consistent if we didn't slip. So I just think the 2.5 million, we're just not going to get there because the county is not promoting growth in the unincorporated area. The municipal areas are doing everything they can to encourage building in the municipal area. Thurston County is still doing everything it can to discourage building in the unincorporated area. So until that changes, and we change our regulatory process as well to help reflect that. So those are my questions just with that particular revenue stream. Let alone the property tax thing going up considerably more than the 3% that you talked about earlier in the couple weeks ago or whatever it was.
So the property tax calculation is based on the actual worksheet that I prepare every year for the assessor for 2022. So that is the increase in the levy.
Have we got that
no
report?
Question.
Did we get that report, Robin, back from the assessor now? Have we got the actual numbers?
We have the preliminary numbers from the assessor on new construction and value. So yes, we do have that, and I've done the worksheet. So the 2022 levy amount that is on your forecast is what, at this point in time, it could be a little bit less, but that is the amount of the 2022 levy, no question there. And then the 2023 number applies the 3% growth. On sales tax, to your comments about the money coming from the incorporated area, the vast majority of the sales tax revenue that Thurston County collects is from the incorporated areas. So growth in those areas will result in growth in sales tax revenue for the county.
That's
because we collect that one. Yes, that 1%. Yep, that 15 cents on the tax dollar. Yep.
Yep. I know we get a portion of that.
That is the majority of our revenue, is that fraction, not the full amount that we collect from the unincorporated.
Right. Okay. Now, going back to where the money is coming from on the annual fee towards this 3,000 building, which is what? Is it going to be what is it now? 1.5 or 1.7 a year?
It's an escalation the first year. The annual lease?
Yeah.
Yeah, the annual lease proposed, it starts in 2020. The first year.
Sure.
$1,546,055. And the year 7 is $1,811,093.
So it's just rough. Say 1.7. Is that a fair number, just to rough it?
Well, that's
rough
what
it out?
Robin stated. She had a 1.7 as an average. This is more actual.
Yeah. Okay.
But also what includes in this is also she has been able to look at the square footage and see, know all the offices and departments that will go into the 3,000 building are depending on the general fund. So that's the new number that's
A little bit of that will be coming from specialty
Right.
roads and such like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The roughly 7 million that we talked about doing upgrades there, and now we've kind of got that on the remodel portion of it, but that's going to be kind of 10 million, but maybe not, but it's now not more than 10 million. Is that kind of where we're still at?
Yeah, the latest numbers that we presented to the board was about 9.2. So the motion for you to consider is not to exceed 10 million.
10 million, yes. Okay.
And that would be from REIT.
Pardon?
And that comes from REIT
That is
one.
from REIT.
Right, and so if we continue with that, I'll just throw something out there that if we use that REIT money, the 1.7 million, that comes out of where? General fund and those other funds you're talking about, right? The county manager, the portion that would be funded by
Yes, a
the
portion,
roads
yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
So I don't know how much of that is gonna be general fund, but probably 3/4 of it,
Well,
let's say.
just take the number. I'll give
Yeah,
you the-
numbers are right here on the sheet.
Yeah, I'll give you the first year. It's
Uh-huh.
$1,546,055. That's the cost of the first year.
Yeah.
And right here, you have $1,167,000 of the general fund.
That's gonna be the general fund.
Yeah, so
portion. The difference
the
is.
difference is other funds.
Is dedicated funds, right. Okay, so then the not more than 10 million for the remodel, that comes out of REIT. And as we move forward on that, I do have a question. When we spend that much money at the county level, we have to go out for RFPs and some kind of a bid process. The way I looked at that contract, the dollar amount area for that expenditure was basically blank. I don't know that we know yet. And how do we go out for bid to make sure we get the best deal on that expenditure? So the taxpayers get the best bang for the buck, because if we allow it up to the building owner, I mean, he's kind of got an open checkbook there. And I don't know how we can legally do that whole upgrade using REIT money when we're basing that REIT expenditure on a 1988 Attorney General's position way back when, before the law was changed in the 90s and a lot of other things came into play there. I know that's being scrutinized by outside, groups, that's fine. I'm just wondering, how does that work? If we end up in a situation where we do some bidding, we get it spent, we do it right, now are we cutting into Fish Passage because that's what we use the REAP for?
No, that's.
Or is that's REAP 2?
Yeah.
Okay, good enough. How do we control the cost on the upgrade portion, the remodel that meets our needs? And then, according to the law, do we take those with us when we leave? If we go in, what is it, 5 years, 7 years, whatever it is?
7 years.
Or are we allowed to turn it over to the owner of the building, or do we have an agreement to sell it to him, or how does that work out?
So the tenant improvements, you may be looking at an early version of the lease, draft version. The latest lease does not have a blank for the amount that we would pay out. It is tied to one of the exhibits that is part of the lease, and the exact amount of money is lined out. So it's got a limit.
Oh, maybe I
So
did.
that's the first thing. There are no blank dollar amounts in this lease.
Okay.
The second thing is that the ownership of the improvements, when we move out in 7, 10, whatever number of years that we stay in that building, the tenant improvements would stay in the building. Anything attached to the building would remain in the building. And it would basically be amortized over time, so we would not need to sell it back to the building owner. Anything that is not attached to the building that the county paid for, like furniture, we could take with us or dispose of it through the normal methods of auction, like we do any other county asset. So that's what will happen to the assets in the long run. This would be a public work, and we would work with the building owners to bid out the work and ensure that we were following all public works rules.
Including prevailing wages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Prevailing wage, absolutely. All of the rules regarding a public work would apply.
How did we rectify the 3 parking spaces per 1,000 feet? Did you get that all figured out?
We have found additional parking near the building. There's the parking right at the building, which is, I will absolutely agree, limited. There is a remote lot that comes with the building. There is parking adjacent to the remote lot that we would expand and use. And then there is a third parking option that we would take as well to ensure that there's sufficient parking.
And then on that whole part, is there additional cost associated with that parking above and beyond what it's showing here? Or do you have that line item now?
Have it factored in.
Into what? The new figures we got today?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, you make pretty good arguments on it, but I have to say I'm not satisfied, but I'll hear what the chair has to say.
Commissioner Mejia, I see your hand.
Yeah, so going back to the estimation for the general fund, I've heard rumors about the salary increase being more than the 2.5%. Is that factored in just in case it is?
You have not made that decision. This 2.5% is based on the current contracts that we have. Whether somebody's expecting more than 2.5%, that is something the board needs to weigh in. So there is nothing behind the scenes they will justify more than 2.5%.
Could I kick in on that? I guess the only thing I'd say in that regard is I believe Commissioner Mejia is talking about the reality of inflation, that might take place and then the bargaining units.
So that's within your purview.
Sure, yeah.
That's within the board's purview.
But will we have, does that cut into our ability to do policy?
Well, this is the financial plan, and if you decide to go one direction or another, those are all the moving pieces that you need to weigh in.
Yep. Okay, good enough. Excuse me.
No, that was my question.
So with any of the bargains that are happening right now, isn't that something we have to like keep by, like something that, you know?
So right now we're bargaining the impacts of the vaccination ordinance resolution, and we're going through that process. And I believe you heard some of the asks on an executive session last week. But nothing that I know at this point, they're requesting an additional increase on the from the 2.5%.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so I guess the decision point is whether or not we keep the agenda item, which for this afternoon.
Could I add a couple comments, Commissioner?
You have a couple comments?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Ramiro.
Yeah, this is a lot of assumption comes into this this planning document. And a lot of the assumptions is not new as to how we have provided in the past as assumptions as we continue to revise and see in the many different instances. What I think what you have in front of you is a very conservative approach as to how the revenues will be, not just this year, next year, and the years to come. Things change, it will change. But at this point, what staff has provided to you is an avenue and a path forward for you to consider 3000 Pacific. Absent that approach, is always a plan C, right? And the plan C will be to start doing some improvements on the courthouse campus. And those improvements are needed, and will continue to be needed. But the point is of that investment will not create the space that we need to as we grow as a county government. It also rest assured that absent this, they give us the option to have empty buildings to continue to do the remodel. If we remain in this site, it will go through the remodel that is needed in this campus. We may need to find temporary lease space to relocate some office departments while the construction is going on in here, because there is no really that we can have staff in this building or any other building and have active construction, considering this an old building and we have asbestos. So I'd like to give you that perspective as well, that the plan C is going back to this the courthouse, and the improvements will require finding at least a space to start moving offices for a certain period of time, because it's not going to be an easy retrofit of this facility while employees are located in this building. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ramiro. I guess I'll chime in just with a couple of comments. And that's a good kind of segue into some of my comments. I mean, yeah, the choice isn't spend X or nothing. If we don't spend X being what we would spend to move in the atrium, it's going to be a patchwork of other leases. It's going to be, it's just going to be other more poorly thought out and poorly spent money. And I guess I've never made this point in our board discussions, but I want to make it now, which is that my whole support for the bonds to do the major tens of millions of dollars of upgrades on this complex is contingent for me on us also solving our space needs. And I can justify to the taxpayers that expenditure in these old life outused buildings, because we've got a plan. I've been consistent about that the last 3 years. If we have a plan, we've been beat up by certain citizens since the day I got here about why haven't you done this upgrade or that upgrade to these buildings? Well, we didn't have a plan we were being told these buildings had outused their useful life, that they couldn't be upgraded in certain ways, that it was a poor expenditure of taxpayer dollars. And I said, as soon as we have a plan of what we're doing, then I'm willing to consider that. If we don't go forward with this, then in my opinion, we don't have a plan anymore. and sinking tens of millions of taxpayer dollars into upgrading these overcrowded and buildings that have outused their life is not a responsible expenditure of taxpayer dollars, and I won't do it. So we'll be back to the drawing board. There has never been a viable Plan C presented. There's no other iteration of a Plan B, and the board has stepped away from Plan A, which was to ask the voters to consider a new facility. So in light of where we're at and what the financial modeling looks like, I think this is the responsible thing for us to do. So I'm supportive of this item remaining on the agenda this afternoon. So who's next? Commissioner Edwards?
Okay. I might just point out that we always receive information that's the latest information. And I know last month, we couldn't have got the information that we got this month or today. So I know that always has to change as time goes on. But this has been pretty much of a moving target if you look at all the material that's been put out over the last 6 months, say, on this topic. So again, here we are today with this latest proposal that we've gotten this morning. I don't know, did others get this last night? I didn't get it until this morning, I'm just curious. Did you guys get it last night?
No, I got it this morning.
So it's kind of an ever-evolving situation. The 3000 building has been on the block, up on the block the whole time. Nobody else has stepped forward trying to lease it or buy it. I don't think there's a big hurry. And we do have empty buildings right up here on the hill. If you take a drive and go like you're gonna go over to Chandler Court, right off the bat, you pass a couple of big office buildings that are up for sale or lease right now. Can't tell you anything more about that other than the signs are out there. Maybe people are looking, maybe they're not. Pierce County's workforce, they are cutting all of their leases, getting rid of leases, because 30% of their workforce that can work from home wants to work from home. 30% want to come back to work. They want to get out of the house and get back to work. And 30% don't know what they're doing, but they're not forging ahead in acquiring more leases. They are cutting back on leases. So I guess I'm just going to let it go at that. I just don't see that there's a rush. First of all, nobody's ahead of us in the line trying to get this done. This has been pending for 6 months. Boy, government does go slow. You'll never find anybody that agrees with that more than I do. But I just cannot say that this is the right thing to do at this point in time. So I'm for removing it from the agenda today.
Commissioner Mejia.
So for me, thank you for this new budget information, but I don't have, I believe, Robin, staff has our budget binders right now, so I have all my other estimates in there. And I kind of want to see kind of like a comparison of how it's kind of projected, and I understand before I make a decision. So I'm not sure when are we going to get those back, Robin? I know that
You should have those back on Friday, Commissioner, Friday afternoon.
So I'm going to ask that this be moved to next Tuesday if possible, just so I can see kind of like all the projections and how it's gone, if that's okay.
That's a proposal.
Well, I don't have a second vote for voting this afternoon, so I'll support your proposal to have it reconsidered next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Okay, then let's get to item 3, flood hazard mitigation plan.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Mark Beaver with CPED Community Planning. Here, I'm going to give you a very brief update in consideration of time of what we've done. Flood Hazard Mitigation Plan Annual Progress Report was just completed last week. And that is part of we do this as part of our community rating system, which the CRS program, which I've briefed you on before. That's part of the larger FEMA National Flood Insurance Program, which helps lower insurance premiums for flood insurance throughout the county. So if you live in a special flood hazard area, you get a 40% discount. That also applies to countywide for other insurance. I'm going to give you a brief highlight of what the progress report initiative is, what we found in the progress report this year. And this was done in cooperation with our community stakeholders, citizens in the community. TRPC manages this for us under contract, and we also work with other county departments. So highlights of this report for the 2020 and 2021 review. 18 out of the 20 initiatives identified in the report, about 90% of them are either ongoing or have been completed. Flood hazard regulations, new flood hazard regulations were adopted in November of 2020, and those are in effect right now. 2021 is when they went into effect. Emergency management has updated several emergency support function plans. Public Works has replaced several culverts for fish passage enhancement as well as flood alleviation projects. And there's been significant upgrades to the Thurston County water monitoring program reporting capabilities in 2020 and 2021. So all in all, it's been a positive year. We've completed most of the items in our plan, and the new flood hazard mitigation plan is up for renewal in 2022. And so we'll be working with our stakeholders to come up with a new plan to continue this good work. And that's my abbreviated version.
Okay. The commissioners that got the copy of the update, any questions for Mark this morning? Commissioner Mejia?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
Did we get this information in the past? Was Kurt's shop involved in some of this presentation before?
Yes, emergency management is part of this process. So yes, we do work with emergency management on this. Yes, probably in the past you were updated via emergency management.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering. I'm trying to compartmentalize all the different things we hear on a regular basis, and so I'm trying to know where it fits then. It isn't something new. You're just presenting it from a different perspective.
That's correct. So CPED's heading it up this time, and emergency management is an integral part of the flood hazard mitigation plan. Yes, you're right.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mark. Item 4 is public testimony. Anything to report there?
No, you already addressed that. I do have a couple of items, more of a quick updates, if I may.
Yes.
One is a follow-up to a question from Commissioner Edwards related to the open space fees. He stated last week that perhaps has been an increase. It has been an adjustment. It is related to the ordinance 14958 the board passed when they approved all the fees. Within that ordinance includes an escalation factor based on the CPI every year. So, and that includes all the fees, permitted fees, and everything else. They changed from 2020 related to the open space to 2021 was an increase of $24 as a result of the CPI. It went from $1,592 to the current $1,616.
Maybe as a quick follow-up on that, has there been any discussion at all about reducing that fee to encourage folks to get into that? Have we ever had that kind of a discussion? I don't recall that. That's why I'm asking you.
No, it's not. Obviously the board has the authority and the preview to undo any ordinances the previous boards have done. But staff does not have that ability.
Yeah, okay, good enough.
And the other one, an update is we have been receiving a lot of requests a few months ago and looking at shooting zones, one in Black Lake, and here, and that was to restrict some of the shooting zones. And here recently, it was to soften some of the non-shooting zones in Lawrence Lake. I think it is a very complicated matter. It is not going to be a simple, easy one way to go on this. What I recommend the board is for you to consider added to the code development docket for next year. So actually staff can start working on a very comprehensive approach as to how we need to address and assess the non-shooting zones, not just on those 2 lakes, but along all the lakes that we have here in the county. That will be probably the most prudent approach to address the non-shooting or shooting zones and the lakes, because at this point, going one request per bad request may not be the right approach. So that will be my suggestion. This is in response to some of the comments that were received.
So Ramiro, I didn't understand. I haven't seen the Lawrence Lake. I didn't understand. Somebody wants to, what do you mean soften the non-shooting zone?
A request that we received from Lawrence Lake, it was to allow shooting as a way to control some of the geese population. Obviously, within they need a license. Obviously, there is not a free for all, but it is because the geese are protected species, but there is a window and a way as to how they can probably be hunted. So they are requesting to soften some of the non-shooting zones that we have in Lawrence Lake. So non-shooting zones, soften it or imposing. So my recommendations for the board is to, if interested, is to just put into the path of assessing the overall code related to shooting areas in the county.
You want me to comment on that, sir?
Just give me a second. Commissioner Mejia wasn't here. The Black Lake shooting came up several times during the first 2 years that I've on the board before you were on the board, and I brought it forward just for discussion. I don't have a position on it, but I was provided videos, like actual videos that you can watch, which I can share, but of people like are fishing or standing on their dock or water skiing, and then you hear shooting like really close by. So there was concern from citizens of Black Lake wanting to restrict the amount of shooting that's going on. Sounds like in Lake Lawrence, they want to do the opposite, but I just wanted you to we kind of punted because the county manager said, well, that kind of gets reevaluated when census data comes forward and we look at it. We also went into I had my assistant talking to WDFW is involved, and there's a lot of layers of who's actually responsible for those policies. And I had trouble making heads or tails of it. I would like to have a consistent, comprehensive approach. So I guess I'm probably going to support the county manager's suggestion that we just look at it and try to deal with it consistently across the county. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. Commissioner Edwards.
I guess I'd just follow up. I think the whole gist of this really doesn't have anything to do with hunting. It really doesn't have anything to do with shooting, I don't think, other than they're trying to get rid of the geese, because the geese have become permanent residents, and that reflects back on the water quality. And the water quality issue is the issue. Well, this is just one group or organization apparently that has come up with that as a solution.
On Black Lake, it is about hunting because they have videos of hunters hunters will actually like trespass in order to access the birds. They'll trespass through residential homeowners and associations, and they've got videos of that. And then they'll shoot and they'll put out decoys, there's some limits on when you can do that. And so it is a hunting issue on Black Lake. It may be a different issue on Lawrence Lake, but that's, yeah.
I think we could solve both issues. We'll just put signs up by Black Lake, go out and shoot at Lawrence Lake. Then it'll be solved. Okay.
All right, very good. Is that all you had, Ramiro?
Yes, sir.
Are we still waiting for Tumwater's input regarding the proposed letter for Squaxin Island? Commissioner Edwards had some questions on that.
I briefly touched base with John Don, the city manager, yesterday. He was going to be sending me an email, but I believe the mayor has submitted an email to you, Commissioner Menser. Have you received that email from Mayor Kamat?
I didn't. Not unless it came yesterday. Last week, I had a text exchange with the mayor who said he was going to look into it and respond back. But you think I got that response?
The gist of his paraphrasing what he stated to me, there is in support with conditions, as long as they don't put a fireworks stand in there. I said, well, I won't be able to put those restrictions because as soon as they go into trust, all bets are off. But it will be, since it's within the city of Tumwater, that will be illegal to sell fireworks anyway. So,
Yeah, but it's not illegal to sell fireworks on trust land.
well, yeah, that's the risk.
That's where the problem is, so.
So that's the only thing that I can report on that, and that's the only restrictions they proceed to have in terms of, as long as there is not an assurance that we can provide, nor, because as soon as it goes to trust, they can probably do whatever they deem appropriate from the tribe's perspective. So that letter is still in place. Let me know if you'd like to sign it or not. Or maybe just Commissioner Mesa would like to sign in support of this, if that is the approach the other two commissioners thought.
I'm willing to go forward with
Okay.
it. I spoke with some Tumwater Council members about this, and they said that they would be in support of it, so.
I'd kind of like to hear from the mayor myself, so I'm gonna hang fire until I hear a little more about it.
Okay, if I got a communication directly to me, I'll share it with the county manager so that the
Okay.
board can be aware of that, and then Commissioner Edwards can make a decision on that. Okay, then let's go to our executive session. Oh, unless we've got another commissioner's item that's a burning.
I have one commissioner's item that I want to bring up, and that's it. It shouldn't take long.
Go ahead.
On the solid waste contract, that I think we have voted unanimously to send that forward to a particular bidder. Okay, I got no problem with that. My problem is the information that was brought forward by a competitor and referring to a bark hauling outfit as the solution. And apparently permits have been applied for, or whatever the deal is. But the county manager did give me I don't know, brochure maybe from the company that supposedly is gonna take care of the organic product that are gonna be recycled. So I'm just not satisfied that that is anywhere near a legitimate proposal. And it's all based on a maybe. Now, we're hearing that, well, there's been a permit applied and one outfit says, we're gonna get it and we'll have it done. And another outfit says, no, you're not ever gonna be able to get it because of X, Y, or Z. I don't know what X, Y, or Z is, but I'm just saying, having voted for that contract to move forward, I'm disappointed that a portion of it seems to be in limbo. And that portion was a big part of my discussion with county staff. And that all stemmed around the carbon footprint, and that kind of thing, and how far trucks were gonna drive and what they were gonna do. And I thought that was all satisfied. So I'm just saying I'm still at limbo, and I'm probably not satisfied with just picking a bark grinding outfit, because there is absolutely no comparison between the operation of that type of facility and the operation of a true composting facility regulated through the Department of Ecology. So I'm done with that for now. I just wanted to point that out, but it was a concern.
Okay.
More to come, I'm sure.
I just, two things that occur to me listening to your comments. One is that, they made the representation that that facility will never exist, and all the stakeholders said that that's not an accurate representation. There's a good reason to believe it will exist, even though it doesn't. And that also that the scoring would not, even if the other outfit had gotten 0 on that and lost on that indicator, it would not have changed it still wouldn't have changed who would have come out first, because that's only one component of a whole ton of components that were evaluated in the RFP. So again, you always want all the information. I'm not saying you're wrong about that, but I don't think it would have changed anything based on what was described to us from our staff. Commissioner Mejia, anything on that item?
I still have some questions in regards to it, but I don't know, we have an executive session, so I'm not sure we have enough time to really dig deep into it.
Okay, well,
More to come.
More to come. Okay, so we have one last item, which is an executive session pursuant to 4230-1101I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation. Specifically, we're discussing Blake decision litigation. Commissioner's action may follow. We have an estimate of how long, Romero?
I'll probably say 10 minutes. Will you agree with that, Jane?
Yeah, that would work.
So we're going to estimate 10 minutes for this executive session, and then we'll come out and conclude the meeting for this morning. Okay, are we back?
Yes, you are.
You're on, Commissioner.
Okay, very good. So the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session for September 28th. We're back from a short executive session. It's 12:41 p.m. No commissioners' action is following from what was discussed. And that is the last item on the work session agenda. So with that, we are adjourned until 2 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.